And we're live. I hope people have seen it and are coming because I didn't send out any notices.
We're live on YouTube. Yeah, we're good.
Let's see here. Do I want this? No.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're doing well.
Is anybody here?
I am. But you probably
Chew!
already knew that.
Chew!
What's going on, Chew?
Welcome.
What's up, Mandy?
Hey, Mandy, how you doing?
Metal Matt, how you doing? Good to see you. Thanks for being
Hey,
a channel
Metal
member
Matt.
to Tiger. What's up, Neil Hahn?
Yankee!
Hey, what's going on, brother? How you doing? Good to see you. What's up, Sassy? Well, drop the ball, Tiger. Tell them what we're here for.
Well, we are here to discuss something. I got this really awesome question when I did my Uncle Sal interview. And here's the question that came. Let me bring this up on the screen. Here we go. This comes from Great Fulone 345, and the video was about 2 weeks ago. And the question is, good discussion, new to stacking. Here's one question that I have that I assume has been beaten to oblivion. Just have not heard it yet. When the dollar fails, and coin shops that I have been doing business with are no longer in business, where do I sell, trade? Do I understand the possibilities of trading in an SHTF scenario? But ... I sent him a reply that basically said, to come and send me an email so maybe I could bring him up on live stream. But I've to date never heard back from him. So I decided I was going to work on a video, and then I decided let's just do a panel discussion. I asked Frosty to come on board. Over the 6 years, I'm sure you have, Yankee. So, but this is the first time this has been ever asked of little old me. So I wanted to bring that on board. I am going to do a more of a thorough video in the whole process. Welcome, Gary. So, the way I see it is with the 4,800 currencies that have failed over 6,000 years, and watching things happen through Weimar Republic and Zimbabwe, Venezuela, what I see is happening here. Desperate countries do desperate things. And then it becomes an issue between a government that is too much totalitarian and trying to control the people, and the people trying to survive. So what I'm going to see is that our first of all, people are going to believe the fiat currency is going to be still good for a period of time. I'm going to guess somewhere between 6 and 18 months. And during that period of time, they won't want to talk about silver or gold because they have been so brainwashed that they don't think this is nothing more than a rock. Then after that period of time, when they realize the supply lines are worse and worse and worse, people are going to start doing hunting and fishing, and some people are, in my opinion, going to get smarter and actually do gardening and raise their own livestock in their own backyards, like I do with chickens and rabbits. Plus, keep non-perishable food on standby. During that period, next period of time, you're going to need more to rely on that, because then people are going to want to hurt each other. My son used to say, "I'll just go out in the woods and kill a deer, kill a rabbit, whatever." My answer to him was, "So will be most everybody else." And if two men are arguing over who shot the deer, and both of them have screaming, hungry kids at home, the deer is coming out with one of the men, and the other one's going to be food for the coyotes. So I think that period is going to last another 6 to 18 months. And then people are going to say, we need to quit killing each other. And then they're going to start wanting to go to a period of bartering, which I don't think is going to last very long, because it's really hard to barter, because not everyone has everything that you want. You'll have 2-person barter, 3-person barter, 5-person barter, and then it's going to get ridiculous. Hey, Nickel.
But there's a lot of things that we need to talk about when we talk about barter system, especially when you're talking about silver and gold in the beginning, and why me as a collector, I don't think that they're going to utilize collectible coins, silver and gold in the very beginning. I think the tradable items you're going to be working with is going to be skilled labor. It's going to be water. There's going to be rice, beans. Those are going to be some of the essentials that happen at the very beginning, because number one, you won't really have everybody won't be on the understanding of what a quarter is, a silver quarter value is. There's going to have to be a level of understanding and agreement as to the term of the monetary value once the SHTF happens.
I
But
agree.
there's some things about the barter service that many people don't really think about when you understand this. And then when you look at this, assuming we don't have something like a total financial collapse, we still have a system of government in place. There's IRS is still in place. We just do a big SHTF blow up like what happened in Spain a few years ago, where they had that global crisis and they had all sorts of issues in the European region and things of that nature. There are some things that people need to understand if we haven't gone to that full extreme SHTF, and that's number one. Barter situation. Obviously, we got more than one party talking about goods or services, but there's some things that you need to know. The IRS actually considers barter a form of a payment. It considers it income. So, what are the legalities of the bartering system going to be? So, I don't think there's going to be a lot of people wanting to trade gold, silver, numismatic items, because it's going to be one of those items that's going to be traceable and trackable. I think a lot of that stuff is going to be time, because even though they talk about goods or services, the IRS requires you to calculate a full market or fair market value, even for services and things of that nature. Those are going to be way easier to produce than a monetary value of a silver bar or a gold bar or constitutional or junk silver. So there's going to be some things that are going to be easier to do. But again, when you're talking about short-term monetary crisis, you're already talking about monetary values and things like that already decreased. Look at Venezuela, look at things of that. You look at some of the stuff that happened during that economic standpoint. We've heard Yankees in the house. We've heard Tim talk about Venezuela as a perfect example of what would happen in a situation like this. And the money wasn't the issue. It was the life essentials, the food, the water, the rice, the beans.
Yeah.
Those are going to be some of the items you really want to look at first off.
There's a component that you haven't considered also, because people being people, they have their issues. A lot of them are addictions. I had this conversation with my brother-in-law sometime not so long ago. He's like, I don't think he was joking. It sounded like a joke, but I don't think he was joking. That if he comes to America, he knows how to make a samagogue, which is basically Russian moonshine vodka. People will be trading like crazy to have that thing. He said, and then he's saying, you need to buy a whole bunch of cigarettes because people will be tripping over themselves trying to trade for cigarettes, which is kind of a disgusting thing. I hate cigarettes, but there will be people doing that. So in addition to what you're talking about time and everything, hey, Gremlin, welcome. Hey, Nickel. But in the process, you're going to be dealing with people wanting to get their fixes. Also, I'm not, and I certainly don't want to go down the topic of illegal medications, but there's going to be people that are going to be trading on cigarettes. There's going to be people trying to trade on alcohol. There's going to be people trying to trade for goods and services. Me as a physician, I'm going to be trading my physician skills so that I can put food on the table and not have to touch money at all. Now, getting back to what you're saying, how in the world do you quantify something because they want to tax services? And how the hell do you, if no one has any money, how in the world do you tax services and then give the government taxes on your time? Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Somebody was asking me if I was sunburnt, and I told them no, it was the low light situation. So I was just showing them that I'm not red. It's just when I do low light, it makes my face look red because of the lighting.
Oh, I thought you were related to Orange Man.
Carrot Top. There you go, Carrot Top. So sorry, I wasn't listening to the last piece of that. I apologize.
No problem. But no, I don't understand how in the world you can even begin to figure out how you pay taxes on the time that you've traded with.
Well, again, you're talking about fair market value. So it's the same reason or the same thing that you would do if you were looking at donating. So for instance, let's say, yes, I am an orange faced man. Let's say that you donate goods and services to the IRS. Well, there's two ways to do that. There's fair assessment, fair market value, in which you do your self-assessment based off the quality of the item that you submit for your tax break. So for instance, if you are turning in clothing or bedding or IT or whatever, you have to do a fair market value of what that would be. And then from that, make an assessment. Or you can go to the IRS website and you can search the items that are there, choose the elements, and then it'll give you a price. And then as a total, then you can tally that. So there are ways that they can do that. So you list your job, list the things, list the amount of hours that you did, and then they can give you a fair market assessment of how you claim that. The IRS already has that put into place. So it wouldn't be like they had to develop something. The problem is that if you're utilizing that in fair market, goods and services necessarily wouldn't be exchanged evenly. So how would you exchange that evenly? How would you justify that a service for one person may come at a higher rate because that's all that they do, where the other person that's doing this may be washing your windows or something like that, where the one person, you're a physician, you provide an emergency appendectomy and something, and they pay you back in water. How do you quantify that in value? So I think there's going to be serious problems, but there's a lot of information when it comes to basic goods, services, and things like that are already in place. The problem is if we have a true economic breakdown, none of this is really going to matter anyway. But again, the initial SHTF, I don't think it's going to be a massive global big blow up like some people are saying, like it's going to be towards the end of the world. But there are going to be some issues that happen where it's going to be very severe economic, where we have something that happened in the 80s in Russia, which was people went to bed, like my wife's family went to bed as wealthy bankers, woke up the next morning and didn't have enough money to buy bread. So those are going to be the situations that I'm concerned about, right? Mm-hmm. And one time I probably need to have her up and have her talk about what happened during the late 80s when that occurred and what happened, because her father was a fairly wealthy, high-end member of that party, and their money went to nothing.
Well, it'd be a
So,
great idea to have both wives. My wife was obviously from Ukraine. Her dad was an engineer. Her mom was a dentist. They went to bed the same night. The next morning, everybody's bank account was zero. So it'd be great for, in my opinion, for the community to hear it from both wives, whose both families have gone through it at the same time.
right.
If you,
And my wife's been here for 16 years. She's true and true American. She looks at some of the stuff that's going on. So I want to be very clear when I talk about the sins or the choices of her grandparents and friends, but or father. That was just the life in those days. But there were significant barriers and issues that they had, and I think understanding and getting that information firsthand is way more important than us making generalized assessment based off of what's happened in other ones. Again, Yankees here, we've heard Tim talk on multiple occasions about situations, and quite frequently we hear about Venezuela as one of those because it's a common thing that happened. It's something that we understand. We can look at. We can look at the economics. We can look at what happened with the government, how they did things. We can look at what happened to the social structure of the people, and it's a really good example. But we can take some of these other people that have been through this in their own personal life. I think it'd be a great conversation to have.
I think so too. It'd be even really cool if we could get Yankee and Tim to pop up on stream, but they're so busy with their lives. I think that he'd kind of chuckle me away.
Hint, hint, wink, wink.
Yeah.
Oh no, mentally corrupted killed another furnace. That's no good. Number
Oh, dude.
4.
Mentally
And
corrupted.
you know
Are
you're
you using
supposed to pour them, not beat them, right?
mentally corrupted? Question here, my friend. Do you happen to you're using the 2 auto if I remember your videos completely. And if you're using the 2 auto, I got an idea. Oh crap! One computer went off. If you're using 2 auto, then I've got a idea because mine went kaplooey. Now, granted, I bought a used one, but I'm using tabletop, and I've got. If you connect with me, I'll try to see if you'd be happier using that as an option. It's certainly not part of the issue here, but contact me. I'll get back in touch with you, and maybe we can get you to working something that has better support than the Chinese company 2 Auto.
So there is one question. It was asked, better need a better furnace brand. There is a question that was asked by 3D Woodworks, and I want to go back and address this. We were talking about the other one. I want to make sure that we do this before it gets out of stream. It says a question: how small is too small to test gold on a pocket pinger? Do you happen to know that question?
I
Or
have
the
used I have used pocket pingers as small as 1/10 and 1/20th, and as long, and you can't hear it with my naked ear. However, I have used what is in my phone, which is Coin Tester, and it's usually free, but it talked me into giving up a couple dollars so that I could use it on different types of silver Eisenhowers. And I want to get a monster box of silver Eisenhowers for SHTF because of it being fractional silver to buy things and not have to waste, more pricey pieces of silver. So, but no, I've used the coin tester, and it's done a good job. Except, and you'll see this in the video, I got a piece of silver that was wrongfully labeled on the COA, wrongfully labeled on the coin. It is silver, but not what it says it is. And I used the coin tester and the pinger, and it got funky results. So I tried doing something else and still got funky results. And I think it's just me and my lack of computer skills to figure out what to do with coin tester unless it's an established piece of silver, such as an American silver dollar, a Morgan, or whatever. So I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah. So as for me, I'll be honest with you. I don't even own a pocket pinger. I talk about it all the time. I had one a few months ago and ended up setting something down on it, busted it, haven't bought another one since. Need to get a
I'll
new
get
one.
you one. I'll
A
get you a
10th
new
ounce
one.
gold is the smallest I've ever tested on, but I had to utilize the app. But I want to make sure that 3D Woodworks understands that there's other methods that you also want to utilize. So you want to make sure you do things like you could check specific gravity. If you don't have the money, I know that Nickel says, well, I use a Sigma. If you don't have the money for one of that, you can take it to a coin shop. Um, just make sure that if you take it to a coin shop, they bring the machine out and set it in front of you. Tiger has a great relationship with his pawn shop. Phenomenal people, so he can take the stuff. Now he has his own, obviously, but if you have a relationship with somebody, you can take it there and get it tested. There's specific gravity tests that you can check it with water. But I watched a video about some of the crap that's happening in China. That's another topic that I want to talk about a little bit later on, if we can, Tiger, um, regarding some of the stuff they're utilizing in place of gold that also
Okay.
has it fools the specific gravity test because it's so close in weight. It's rhodium, rhodium, I believe, is the name. I'll have to double check on that, but they are mixing it with the gold, and it actually will fool the specific gravity test. And so there are things you want to make sure you don't utilize one specific test all the time. Um, so we'll talk about that. But yeah, I think the 10th ounce gold is the lowest I've ever tested. I've never tested anything less than that. I don't know if anybody has any other experience with that, but the 10th ounce is the smallest. I don't know that
Hey,
I would test a dose peso or something like that. I
yeah,
don't know that I would test that.
Gremlin, member for 1 month. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Hey,
And Chuck,
Gremlin.
and Chuck does bring up a test that I found out about when I was new to stacking. Totally accident. I didn't know. Hey, Mad, welcome. So basically, I was recording very generically because I didn't know nothing about stacking, and I didn't have teachers. And I started recording things by copying them on my bubble jet printer, which also acts as a copier. And then, I'd store those away for future reference. And then one day I started copying maples, and only with the ones that have the radial lines, I call them striations, you can find if it's real or not, because the maple with the striations will give you a really weird type of hue. It'll go from black to silver to green, and it only happens with that particular type of coin, and the fake ones don't show it. So thank you for reminding me about that.
Yeah, it doesn't work now. I mean, if they have security features like the gold maples or stuff like that, it might work. Now it does work for the silver. It doesn't work for all of them. Um, but again, I don't know that I would test. The reason that he asked was because he has a dos peso that is kind of a purple stains on it, and he's questioning it. Could be from a number of reasons. It could be from the uh, the packaging of the paper, or maybe it was wrapped in something. It could be uh, a dye that's used. So let's say somebody kept it in a purple bag. I know that a lot of people will put gold in bags like your Crown Royal bags and things like that. So there's a dye if they happen to store it in an area that gets humid. So there are other ways you want to test that. But again, if you have any questions, take it to somebody that you trust, and have them put it on a Sigma, or have them put it on something like that. But there's other reasons why you might have coloration on a coin. One of the biggest ones is improper storage. It happens with numismatic items. It happens with video. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff on it. Neil did a video on it. I don't see what Neil did a video on. If we're talking about the China thing, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going on in China with fake bullion and jewelry and all sorts of crazy stuff. When a government like that comes out and issues a warning, there's a problem. So yeah, I expect some serious issues. And I would strongly urge, and I don't say this to be ignorant, if you like collecting the gold pandas or stuff like that, but I would be very, very, very leery about buying anything Chinese for any time. It doesn't matter if it's well known, well named. The significant level of manipulation that's happening within the gold market right now in China is appalling. So I would be very careful with that. Jackknife, what's going on? Thanks for subbing, Jackknife. Tiger appreciates it.
Thank you, Jackknife. Ellie, thank you for throwing in Bifrost link. She did a wonderful premiere today. You know, go see some of her artwork. She's awesome. And T-Bird, hello to you too.
Looky, this sold to Wounded Warriors today. This is a custom piece that she did specifically for Wounded Warriors. You have the warrior ready with the purple heart there, and then there was a 2-ounce Live Free or Die Prima Norte de Artisone. Anyway, really cool. She's done a lot of cool stuff and trying to support for veterans and the Wounded Warrior thing. So it was really cool for Vote for Pedro to commission. He ended up buying the piece, but he commissioned us to do something for Wounded Warriors, and she did an amazing piece. So thank you for throwing that in there. I appreciate it. Thanks, El.
I also want to point out here, this is a video here that I did not so long ago. I got this coin from Morgan Silver Treasures, won it on auction. Very tickled to get it. Weird thing about the coin, the surface read wrong. The through read correctly. And how could you, when you have a counterfeiter, they want to fool you at the surface, and the through would be wrong, not the other way around. So I pinged it. It pinged correctly. I weighed it. It weighed correctly. Then I put it through the specific gravity test. And, you know, if you want to see how that came through, you know, feel free to go ahead and watch this video. Like I said, I have a video coming out where I got a coin that said it was silver. It is, but it's not. I'm not going to give it all away. It's getting edited, but you know, when you're dealing and getting and tying this into the whole SHTF question from the viewer, is that, you know, we're going to go through a period where it's going to take a while to get to accepting silver and gold as mediums of exchange, but there's also going to be a component of, how do I know this is real? And those of us who have the experience can then, you know, teach everyone else.
I threw that link into chat, Tiger. That's a really good video, and I like that because that is a coin from a trusted source, that pre-33 gold from a trusted source, validated and verified through multiple sources in which it failed to, which most people consider, quote unquote, the gold standard of testing. Really nice piece. I really liked what you did on that one. So I made sure that I threw that in there. 3D Woodworks, absolutely. I wanted to make sure we addressed that before we kind of got squirreled and started talking about something else. So again, if you have more questions, please make sure you put that in. Definitely appreciate you coming in and asking questions though.
I missed the question 3D. Would you throw it in again?
That's the one that we just talked about what's the smallest coin you would test for epoxy.
Okay. Yeah.
He's with us, folks. He's with us.
Sometimes I'm a little too intelligent that I don't see some other things stare me in the face. But what we've figured out, because you and I talked about that coin, that gold coin, what we both think is that someone polished the surface to make it look prettier, and the Sigma wouldn't recognize the surface.
There's a couple different things that can happen. So you have to talk about again. So Gary Huffman, I'll answer that question. We'll answer that question here in just a second. I'm going to put that in my little next chat question thing to address. But there's a couple different things that used to be common practices. And when you talk about numismatics and bullion for that matter, there were some practices of old. And we talked about this actually this morning on the live stream with Daughtry from Copper Coins. And there were practices that people used to utilize. For instance, with pennies, they used to wrap them in tinfoil because they thought it would protect them from the elements, protect it from moisture. What they didn't necessarily understand is that if moisture got in, it actually held it into the coin. There are things that people used to do with protecting the surfaces of the coin. Two of them that came to mind were people used to wax the surfaces of the coins. Now, not wax them as in like waxing a surfboard or waxing your skis, but they would heat them up and then they would kind of run them through kind of a wax like you would see in wax paper. It's something that happens with rolls that are very, very old. They would coat those and it would protect the paper from getting moisture put into it and causing corrosion in the coin. The other thing that people would do was they would lacquer the surface of the coin. And this would happen with gold. This would happen with silver. This is something that happened quite frequently. And so sometimes you'll have a coin, you can't see it, but you might have something that's like lacquered on the surface of the coin. They can also polish the coin. They can use some sort of compound to try and polish or buff up that particular coin. And sometimes those things can fool the testing because it doesn't have the conductivity. It changes the conductivity of the test. And so it shows that the surface is different than the inside. In this particular test, the surface didn't test as good as the center of the coin. One was red and the other one was fine, kind of towards the yellow. But when they did the actual test, when he actually walked through some of the other things, it looked like it was a good piece. So again, there are other elements. This is why you don't rely, and you've heard Yankee talk about this, you've heard Salivate talk about this, you've heard me talk about it when it comes to looking at numismatics. You've heard a lot of different people talk about don't trust one method. Make sure you have a plethora of methods at your disposal. Make sure you have people in your back pocket that you can go to that you trust, that you can refer to if you have questions, and make sure you're following up. What's up, $1 Million Meg? How you doing?
Well, you got to also keep in mind when you're doing this, and if you're not familiar with doing science, please Google what is the scientific method. Basically, you got to use some common sense when you're doing science, but it's also got to be reproducible. If you're not reproducing it, hi, Storico, thank you for being a member for a whole month. Thank you. But you got to be able to reproduce it. And if something's wonky, you got to be able to logic it away. Like the silver that I had weird findings on pinging it, and the common denominator was my lack of computer skills. So I couldn't rely on me setting the coin tester to something I've never set before. And Lisa Anderson, member for 5 months, thank you very much. So basically, and when you're talking about Sigma, I want you to, if you're going to talk about Sigma, there are multiple types. Let me diverge for just a second. I'm going to bring this up here. There are multiple different types. There is the original one. This is a surface analyzer. Absolutely good at what it does, but it does surface only. It does have a wand, but the wands are also surface analyzers. And I don't understand why you need a wand for this one. Then you got what came later was the Pro. The Pro is my preferred method. And I'll show you some of the pros and cons very briefly. This one came next, the Mini. The Mini has to be Bluetoothed or something to a phone or an iPad or something of that nature. I didn't want to have to deal with any more technology than what I had to deal with. So I didn't want this. Although this has a swing arm and you could do thicker pieces, which is an advantage. But to hold it in place, you have to have this pin. And things in my house tend to get legs and walk off. So it's a second reason I didn't want this. Later came the Investor. And this was like a hybrid between the Pro and the Mini, and does a good job. But it also has the swing arm needing the pin. So that I'm not a big fan of it, but I'm a better fan of this than the Mini because you don't have to deal with Bluetooth technology. However, if you want to use the downside to the Sigma, the Pro, is this right here. If your pieces don't fit into these two prongs, you can't test it. You can try to get the wands. I have the wands, and they'll only give you surface. But then you can get this device called the there you go, the bridge. Now that thing will do very thick pieces. To you can, but the thing is, you either buy the Pro with all the pieces, or if you buy it and you want to get something later like the bridge. I have everything except the bridge. You have to send your unit in for it to be calibrated because they both the main unit and the accessory have to be calibrated to each other, and they are only calibrated to each other. Being sometimes I buy thicker pieces, I'm going to get this in the future. So enough said about that. Let's get back on topic.
So there's two questions I want to jump into. I think we efficiently answered that one. Gary Hoffman.
Hey, Gary.
Frosty, I have a 1986 Canadian Beaver nickel. It looks like all the others. It's not magnetic, weighs correctly, but it doesn't test for silver, copper, or platinum. Potential counterfeit. There are tons and tons and tons and tons of counterfeits within those. But if you don't know and you really want to look at it, take it to somebody who understands Canadian coinage. Now, I don't know enough about it to actually tell you. Yeah, there are some that are non-magnetic. We do know that. I don't know how they test. The person, if you really want to know more about this, that I would recommend is in LiveCoin Q&A is Coin a Card Hobbyist. That's Amanda. She is really adept at understanding Canadian and foreign coins. So livecoinqa.com, send her an email, take really good quality photos of it, show her the weight, ask her the question, send it to her, and she can definitely help you out. Unfortunately, I don't really have a whole lot other to give you in the Canadian realm just because I don't know enough about it. But if it doesn't test like it should, but it weighs and it doesn't have the magnetic, I would look and see if there's another one like that. But usually, weight doesn't say anything. You have to look at the thickness of the coin. You have to look at the diameter of the coin. You have to look at the devices. You have to look at the strike. There's so many things you have to take into consideration. And Canadian coinage, loonies, toonies, there's so many counterfeits that the government has just said, whatever. And they just keep them in circulation. They pull them out when they get them, but there's so many that they leave it alone. So I would, again, if you want to know more about it, reach out livecoinqa.com, send it to attention Coin a Card Hobbyist. Take good quality photos of it. I'm sure she will help you out.
Another thing about fakes is If any of you watched my video on my teaching box, there's if you're not into what I'm going to say, do not keep fakes. Get rid of them. Hand them to someone who will get rid of them. Get them out of circulation. If you are into what I'm into, which is to teach, and also especially teaching youngsters, I keep all my fakes and I label them as fakes. Not exactly on the device. I'll put them in a capsule or a baggie and label it as a fake because I don't want my teaching to be cheated for looking for something that says it's a fake. So I'll lay it out and I'll have the person that I'm trying to teach to find the fakes on the table, and I'll have all the tools sitting there waiting for them. I remember back before my son became ostracizing himself from the family, I put out a bunch of silver Eisenhowers, and the silver Ike fake was my very first fake. I was so tickled to get it. Sounds weird, but it's true. And he couldn't figure it out. And I brought out a neodymium magnet and just had him wave it over the table, and clink, went right up to him and says, that right there is because it has iron in it. And but you need to have all the tools that you can possibly afford. The cheap ones are the neodymium magnet, the magnetic slide, the pocket pinger, and uh, the specific gravity test, although that takes a little bit of patience. The other ones are more expensive. I would love to have a X-ray gun. I don't think I can afford the X-ray box, but I'd love to have an X-ray gun as proof of what I'm dealing with. Yeah, one day in the future. So I hope I've answered the questions on that.
So L asks the question, a Frosty and Tiger, if it weighs properly, should a person still worry? Yes. Yes,
Huh?
absolutely. I'll give you some great examples of some coins. I'm trying to pull one up here. Trying to find it. It is a coin here. It is a known fake. I need to save the image so that it doesn't show up here because I don't want to promote the site that it's on. See if I can share this somehow without. It's not allowing me to save the image. Let me see. I need to find a way to pull this up. No, it's going to make me save the whole one. Anyway, there is a 1902 Nicholas II Russian coin. It's got an extremely high numismatic value. There are other ones that come out. They have the Tsar on them, and they are really neat gold coins. Of the numismatic gold collectors, they're probably some of the top ones that are there. They're made by melting down or heating up American 2.5 or $5 gold Indians to a point to where the metal is pliable, and then they just utilized the dyes that they had and just mint right over the top of it. They are 100% gold. They are the proper weight. They are the proper size. They are 100% genuine gold, but they are also 100% counterfeit coins. So just because it looks and smells like the item that it is doesn't mean that it's necessarily authentic. Another thing that people need to be careful with when you're looking at things like this is your holders. Just because it's in a CAC or a PCGS or, not necessarily a CAC slab, you don't see many counterfeits in CAC slabs yet. You're going to be seeing more, I'm sure. But PCGS and NGC holders, just because you see a coin in an NGC holder doesn't mean that it's authentic. It doesn't mean that the holder is authentic. You know that there's tons and tons of counterfeit slabs out there. So Mad said something here just a little bit ago. make your effort worth the value. So if you have a $30 silver piece, should you spend 7 months verifying its authenticity? No. But if you're looking at numismatic value, we're talking about gold pieces, we're talking about a significant value, then yes, you're definitely going to want to do your due diligence. If you're buying a high-end numismatic piece, yes, you're definitely going to want to be doing your due diligence. Again, the most important thing that you can do outside of testing it is to have knowledgeable people in your back pocket. Much of that information I don't know off the top of my head, but I surround myself with people who do. In the stacking world, I don't know if he's still in here, but you have Yankee Stacking, you have Tiger. Tiger has relationships with many other people who are knowledgeable about this, and so you can also utilize. I know for a fact that there's a bunch of people in chat who not only have the metalytics tools, they also know how to do specific gravity. They have slides, they have pocket pingers, and they know how to check. Why do you utilize more than one? Because somebody can fool a single test. But you put them all together. Oh, okay. When you put them all together, something's wrong. So maybe the thickness of the coin is too thick. Maybe the diameter of the coin. Maybe the weight is off. Maybe there's something wrong with the slab. And I have some counterfeit slabs. I could run out and grab a couple. I know he's not feeling well. I just didn't know if he was laying in bed listening to this.
Well, that might be true too.
So again, it's just there are so many things that you want to look at. Just because it looks right, weighs right, doesn't mean it is right. Just because it weighs right and tests right, still doesn't mean it's authentic.
Well,
So make sure you do your due diligence with some of that stuff.
You brought up a very interesting point here about the using the current gold. I think you mentioned the Indian, which was ameliorated and then stamped with a completely different dye, which now that would not be caught by a lot of the tests. You wouldn't.
Nope.
Science will, in this case, science will probably fail you.
Exactly.
This is where the expertise of a numismatist will. I mean, in the case of the silver that you're going to get a video on in the very near future, I knew when I touched it, it was wrong. And
well, that's what Metally Corrupted just put in chat. After a while, you get the feel of the coins. You're just going to know. That's like somebody working at a bank or somebody working at a gas station or a bartender. When you see enough of the original, when you handle enough of them, you're going to have a pretty good idea. But there have been experts that have been failed. Even on the numismatic side, there have been experts that have been failed because it looked like gold, smelled like gold, tasted like gold, tested like gold. It was gold, but it wasn't a proper numismatic piece. Now, in that case, hey, you know what? Not a big deal. I still have the 1 ounce of gold, right? Well, maybe it depends. If you spent $7,000 for that piece because you thought it was a high numismatic collectible piece, and now you find out it's only worth $2,100, how much did you lose? So again, you really want to understand what it is that you're buying and then do your due diligence. So what's up, Bellows?
Hey, Bellows, welcome. So now, I'm just, when I started hanging out with you, I was just amazed how frequently you were right about calling a fake. One time you called out a fake on something I was doing a video on, but I'd already verified it. It was a Morgan. It just happened to be weirdly toned. But almost always, a numismatist will pick up a fake, and the verifiers will prove them right. Another thing that was brought up about, if it seems wrong, this is why you want multiple tests, because maybe they can put together enough to fake the sigma metalytics, but it shouldn't be able to fake all the other tests. shouldn't be able to fake, especially the specific gravity test. Or maybe they're putting enough of the specific gravity correctly to try to fake you with a certain alloy. But you put it in the metalytics and it's going to read wrong. So it's best to have a number of different bullets in your arsenal.
Yep. Yeah, and it's always good. And again, this is what I love about this community. I don't know how many people, I can't see the number right now, but I think there's probably like 25 people in chat right now. If you haven't already done so, please make sure that you're smashing the like. But here's the thing. There are a lot of people in here who have experienced this. Amy Harrell says there's counterfeit $100 bills that pass the machine. That's right. But you hand that $100 bill to somebody who works in the industry long enough, they're going to know it. There's a feel to that. They're going to understand what that feels like. Catch Me If You Can. You guys remember that movie?
I don't
Does that
think
ring a bell to you?
No, I don't think I've seen that one.
So Catch Me If You Can. Catch Me If You Can was a good night, Mad. Take care, brother. Thanks for coming in.
Good night, Mad.
So Catch Me If You Can was about the gentleman who created the fake checks. Very, very, very good at it. And he did all sorts of stuff. He became an attorney, actually became an attorney, but fooled people. Yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio, thank you. Tom Hanks was the investigator searching for him. And
I got to see that.
Yeah, so went around, fooled people, was writing checks, figured out he could do all this stuff. Started to learn and really look into what was happening. The government actually hired him, and he would walk in and he would look at it and just in seconds say, nope, that's the real one. Nope, that's the fake. Nope, that's the counterfeit. And he was so adept to knowing what was real and what was not because he understood what real ones look like, that he could just after a couple seconds point it out and say, hey, this is what's going on. There's another example of this in True Lies. You guys remember the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie?
Oh, love that.
What was her name?
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Jamie Lee Curtis, right? And they walk in, they're like, oh, we got one that's absolutely going to fool you. And they show it, and it's like, oh, no, that's the fake right there. And he's like, why? It's like, well, any good bartender would be able to tell that that's a fake. But it's a fact. So the more you get into this hobby, the more you look at stuff, the more you get the feel of stuff, the more you look at the shimmer, the shine, you're going to see things that just don't ring a bell to you. So take time and get familiar with people who really understand this. Surround yourself with people who want to be right, not necessarily first. So you see information out, the first people that go out, maybe they don't know all the information. They just want to be out there first. Give it some minute, give some time. Listen to people that have talked about what's happened, what's gone on with this, what's the good, what's the bad. When you look at brand new things could come out, you can see things, that there are people who have done this for so long. I give Jack Young huge credit in the numismatic realm for counterfeit detection and identifying in the stuff that he does. When Jack Young talks, I shut up and I listen. I don't ask questions. I don't do nothing. I simply ingest what he's saying. Because if I deviate anything from him, I know it's difficult to believe. But if he's speaking about something, I need to shut up and really, really listen, because the man knows counterfeits very, very, very well. And if I want to become better at understanding them, I need to shut up and listen to the person who knows. But I'll never, ever, ever truly be able to identify them if I don't see them and look at them. But here's what I ask. If you have counterfeits, I ask you mark them, scratch the hell out of them, counter stamp them, put a fake, put a copy, put something on them to let somebody know that they are fakes. Doesn't matter if you label them with the label maker. Once they're out of that label, they become another coin. You mix that in a bunch of 50 of them, unless you test them all, you may not be able to find it. I've got a couple fake Mergrin dollars. I wish I had them sitting here, and I don't know what I did with them.
And for the most part,
good.
For the most part,
Gary sent me a coin. Gary got one back. Because he sent me one to look at and investigate. Is a really, really neat cat bust $50 that's a counterfeit. Really, really nicely done. But again, always try to do what you can to mark that. Put something in there, something that's going to help people identify that it's a fake. It doesn't have to be a big glaring C stamped into the side of it, but do something with the rim. Do something that just helps people know that it's a counterfeit. Because again, you're only here for a very short time. That is going to be around for much longer than you are, unless you take it to your grave. That's going to end up back in circulation somewhere. Doesn't matter if it's not marked, somebody's going to get it. So your kids may sell it, your kids may sell it, whatever. Make sure you mark your counterfeits accordingly.
I see your point. I just didn't want to, because I wanted the people I'm teaching to have a hard time and use their brain rather than cheat their way through the test.
Yep. What's up, Zardoz?
Hey, Zardoz. So,
Well, what other questions we got?
Did we cover the original question about the SHTF and where things are going to go, in case that subscriber ever comes to see this this live stream?
I think we adequately answered it. I mean, we talked about the issue that silver and gold are probably, and you know, just your general coin is not going to be your primary one. It's going to be services or food and water, skill based.
Yeah.
One of the questions was if coin shops and stuff shut down, where do they trade? It's going to happen in barter. We talked about the specifics of barter, understanding that there are laws and requirements regarding barter. We talked about the fact that
there's going to be small communities.
Yeah. But again, what do you do? Well, it was said a lot in chat. Surround yourself with good people. Make sure you have your third collectible medal always handy. And
True.
Yeah, you know.
True.
What are the ways and means to get free gold out there? Pan.
That's oh my goodness.
I think that's a misnomer. I don't think there's a way to get free gold.
No.
Because there's a cost to everything.
Well, the cost to panning, especially if you're not young, is pain.
Oh, and time.
Time you'll never get back, and pain that you wish you could get rid of.
So yeah, Amy, barter is depending upon the people that you work with, and this is one of the questions or one of the statements that I made earlier. You're not necessarily, when you're talking about a barter situation, you're not necessarily guaranteed that the barter is going to be equal terms. You may provide a skill that far surpasses. I use Tiger as a doctor as an example, me in IT. If he does an appendectomy on me and I provide lifetime IT support, who wins in that one? I do. I survive. So I can't put a value necessarily on the service that he provide me. So sometimes it's very hard in a barter situation to have equal ground. Those are things that the two people or the three people that are doing that particular action have to agree upon. That's going to be the biggest part of that.
And then the issue about barter is you got to get your negotiation skills up to snuff, because if you can get taken advantage of. So you got to be able to keep in mind that, you know, your negotiation skills, if you meet someone that's fair, you don't have to be hard nosed. If you run up against someone who's trying to take advantage of, then your hard-nosed ability has got to exceed their hard-nosed ability, so that hopefully you can get into an area of fair.
I barter all the time, and Tiger can validate this. We talk about now. Tiger and I have a unique friendship. We're more like brothers than we are just YouTube friends. In that, hey, if you need something, we provide support. We give stuff back and forth to each other. Hey, there's a situation. This is what I'm looking for. I'd be willing to do this if you'll be willing to work with me. Does this benefit you? Well, I would rather do this. We talk about it. We come to mutual terms, and we do that. We talk about YouTube. I'm going to take these off because I'm not reading chat for a few minutes, and my eyes are really bothering me. I'm actually going to turn down the lighting just a little bit, so bear with me if I turn into a cherry tomato.
And while you're getting yourself ready for that, I want to point something out to the mods. If you could help out with the modding, because with Frosty's eyes getting a little bit tired, it would help him, rest the eyes. And I'm starting to learn that as someone who runs his own channel, I'm only good at modding myself, so I would appreciate you all helping if you don't mind.
Thanks. Yeah. Ever since I had eye surgery, I have a photic sensitivity that after a while, my eyes really start to bother me. And I've done 3 live streams today, so my eyeballs are angry with me. So let's go back to this. I guess I'm stupid, but I do
I'll
not
read
see
it.
any
So go ahead.
barter. Oh man, Neil, barter's everywhere. Barter is everywhere. I've got friends that live around here that barter or trade silver for air conditioning work and electrical work, and I know people. I bartered time, IT technical support. I bartered services with hospitals to where there's not a pay, so I don't have to worry about creating all the other stuff. But I bartered support and stuff to have certain things done. Like, let's say I want to go get my A1C done. I'll trade some time, do some volunteer work. So I barter stuff all the time for different services and stuff, and try to save my money. For you don't think that you don't see any barter type in America, you need to get out and really start to look at what people do because, well, I guess I don't know what you mean because barter's alive and strong. Now, it's not like we would see if you were going to a third world nation or barter. If you don't barter in some countries, you get they treat you like you're an idiot. We call it trading now. I need to understand. I guess I need to understand your question. What do you mean by America is not going to be the barter type? But I don't understand that because we do it now. If you're talking about
go
ahead.
I think that the possible implication is that Americans' skills for bartering are usually, the average American is usually not so good. And what I mean by that, as an example, when I was in my 20s, I was in medical school. I was training for 2 months in El Paso, Texas, 1 month in pulmonology, the next month in pediatrics. And I would periodically go to Juarez, Mexico, and my bartering skills were non-existent at the time. However, I had a friend of mine who was also a medical student from New York and Jewish, and his bartering skills was just amazing, and he taught me so much in so little time. So I think that might be what he was mentioning with maybe the typical American is not so good at understanding barter as someone else, but there is a load of Americans who barter all the time. and they're very good, and they're very good businessmen. And if they're not businessmen, they understand the concept. Like Frosty's a really great negotiator, and usually our negotiations are kind of, for lack of a better way of saying it, kind of soft shoe, because there's a level of trust where if I was talking to someone else that my bells and whistles were going off and that wouldn't, and we couldn't come to an agreement, I just cut them off and take a walk. But that's my way of dealing with someone who I realized, and it was taught to me, like I said, when I was going down to Juarez. My friend at that time says, "Let's go," but I really wanted the boots. Let's go. You'll have the boots. What do you mean? Let's go. Just trust me. Shut your damn mouth. Come on, let's go. We're halfway down the street, and the person trying to sell me the boots is waving the boots, and he's dropping the price with every step that we're taking. You just got to understand the human nature. I hope I've answered that question.
Yeah, well, again, so, and I understand what Neil's saying. Now he's said a couple items. America is not going to be a third world Mad Max barter town. Never said it would. But again, we're not in, or we haven't been in an SHTF situation either, right? So look at the context in
True.
which the discussion's happening. You're talking about a discussion in which we're talking about something, some future potential event, and I say potential event because it could be 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years down the road. We don't know. The fact is in America, we haven't had to live in a situation where we barter for our lives. What I'm saying is that in a situation where we have SHTF, gold and silver are out the window for a while. It's not going to be the method in which people do that. And the fools that do that, they buy all that stuff utilizing that up front, are going to be miserable later on in life. The best skills that you can have in an initial setup when the system crashes is going to have access to food, to water. It's going to have good bartering skills, or have a basis for bartering skills, and have some basic planting for the opportunity to either learn how to grow or do something. No, but you know what, Neil, in 1929, you know what people did do? They created something that we still collect today. In fact, it's highly collectible. And some people pulled together and they did what was called the hobo nickel. They utilized skills and they took that and they traded it in for value. They used their skills, bartered with other people to get food. So, no, that's exactly right. You're proving my point. When the SHTF happens, we're going to have skills. Those are going to be the things that we utilize to be able to do that. We have great examples coming from that period in time where people bartered work. They barter their services. They barter their times. Money was not traded and sold. It was buried in the shit houses because they wanted to make sure the government didn't come over and steal it from them. So it wasn't traded. People held on to that. So again, it's okay. I'm not gonna argue with you anymore, Neil. I get what you're saying. But again, it's one of those things where I'm not going to argue for the sake of arguing. Because we might be saying the same thing, but we're saying it two different ways.
Now, that saying two different ways, I run into that a lot, so I hope that's the case here. You still there?
I didn't hear what you said.
So sometimes I run into that a lot, where people saying the same thing two different ways, and then I just didn't say anything after that.
So here's the question, and this is one of those things. 1929 was a serious drop in the price, right? This is where we had Black Friday, the stock plummets, stock markets went through the floor. People lost the massive amount of money. Any program or thing that they had in place didn't matter. It all went out the window. Now, the wealthy still survived. It was a little bit rough for them. They lost tons of money. And in some cases, the rich jumped out windows like you had in 2008 or in 1973. So there were other situations, I should say 1972. There were other situations where um, major situations happened where we have had significant impacts, but we haven't experienced another 1929. It's really easy to say that the America that we live in right now, as torn and tattered as much as we are in a civil war, what did we do during the Civil War during that time frame? How did they do that? Well, they minted their own money. The North and the South, when they reached a certain area, if they were able to take over Delanega, they took over Delanega. They printed their own money. When it was taken back over by the Confederacy, they stripped, they burned everything, tore it all out. They printed their own money. So, again, what happens in a situation where we have this? Well, we don't know, because when you run into the situation, there's a whole lot of factors that goes on. But I can tell you that from the general standpoint, when we look at this, the basic skills, food and water, the essentials, money is not an essential at that time frame. Being able to plant seeds, and we talk about one of the most important things to have is seeds, um, because that's going to be your mechanism for food. There's so many other things that are required before silver and gold. Now, in turn, I'm a numismatist. I collect. I have silver and gold as well, but there's going to be skills that are going to be way more important. So my standpoint isn't arguing the fact that we are or we are not going to be able to barter. It's not going to be a choice. If we're going to want to survive and we don't have stacks and stacks of water, it doesn't matter what you have, you're going to have to learn to barter that. We just haven't had to be in that situation in America. We will be one day. And when we do, it's going to be a required tool. It's going to be something that people have to learn. So
my concern with the whole potential learning how to barter now, people who are preppers will be doing better with it. People who are businessmen will do better with it. People who understand the human equation like you do would do better with it. But what happens? And I'm just going to throw a monkey wrench into the thought. What happens when you're dealing with people who are of the entitlement mentality? The people are so upset about the different things that they didn't get their way this time around on November 5th, when things are going to go to crap. My concern is that their negotiation and bartering skills will be at the wrong end of a gun. So, you got to keep in mind that you're going to have to be able to quickly see what situation you're in. Are you dealing with a friendly? Are you dealing with someone who's not? Are you dealing with someone who's going to lose their cookies within 3 seconds because you didn't agree with them over, who deserves, that piece of meat? Um, you got to be willing to uh, deal with soft and hard and everything in the middle.
and I'd like to say something. Neil and I are having a difference of opinion. Doesn't mean that I disrespect him. Doesn't mean that I don't like Neil as a person. It just means we have a difference of opinion. And folks, this is okay, right? We're still, yeah, exactly. We're all friends here.
Yeah.
But I have zero issue having this discussion with Neil, because I know for a fact that Neil and I do not agree on some things, but we absolutely agree on others. But it's the discussion that's important to happen. Now, give me a reason to change my mind. And the only way that's going to happen is through discussion. Now, I don't think my mind's going to change on this particular piece, but you know what? We can talk about it more. There may be a piece that he gives me that actually changes my mind. And if that happens, then outstanding. But again, just because him and I are not at a meeting point, just because we're not seeing this exactly eye to eye, or maybe we are, we're just not saying the same thing. The fact of the matter is, we agree. Yeah, exactly. Right? We have different perspectives, so we can agree on this. There was something that I heard. I'm actually glad that we had this discussion, Neil. what Neil and I have right now is a discussion. What a lot of America has right now is disrespect for each other.
True. True.
Let's get back to having discussions. Okay. Let's learn what respect is. Let's respect other people's opinions. And even though we don't necessarily agree on eye to eye, we don't necessarily see things the same as others, we can learn and we can grow as people by just having these conversations. Now, somebody you walk away and go, hey, you know what? I don't agree with you, but let's go have a drink later on because we're friends. It is what it is. This is what used to make America great. Now we just learned over the last few decades, just it's okay to disrespect each other. It's a really bad lesson. So Neil, I love you, man, and I'm not trying to knock on you. We're probably saying the exact same thing in different ways, but this is a disdain is a good word too. OC. This is a great example of how we can have discussions and we don't necessarily agree. Or maybe we do, we just don't say it the same way. But we will never identify, we will never rectify unless we have the discussion and we can maintain respect through it. So again, Neil, I love you. I appreciate you, bud. And don't think that my frustration with this has anything to do with you as a person, even though you're wrong and I'm right. Just come on, Tiger. You didn't laugh. I threw you a bone there.
I don't want bones. I want antelope.
You don't want phones, you want antelope?
Bones. He's messing with me, guys.
It's easy to do. You know why Tiger and I are such good friends?
I'm waiting for the punchline.
Yeah, when I was younger, my mom taught me to be nice to handicapped kids.
Yeah, mine did too.
Oh. I need to roast you one day, like I did Angry.
MLZB.
Is Angry still in here? I roasted.
Was that Angry or was it MLZB you roasted?
Oh man, I roasted MLZB, Cash Money, Steve Looking for Silver, Angry Warrior, Oregon Stacker. I kind of roasted Gremlin, but didn't really roast a roaster. Yeah, but I roasted like 5 or 6 people already.
It's kind of hard to roast a girl with blue hair.
Oh no, it's really easy. You just have to make sure that there's a lot of communication beforehand.
There goes Nickel spreading rumors again.
Who else has got any questions?
I'm going to have a serious talk with your mama. Yeah, and then I'm going to sit back on the porch, drink myself a cold one while your mama gives you a spanking.
If SHTF is going to be happening, it's going to be survival of the fittest. Yeah, I heard a conversation, Mr. and Mrs. West Texas Stacker, and I started laughing when the channel, when they started talking about this, and I was like, please don't tell me you're serious. And they were talking about in an SHTF, you're going to want to have a stockpile of lead to trade.
No trade. You'll need it.
Not for that. You're crazy.
No,
people know you have a stockpile on it. You turn around, you're going to end up with one in the back. There are going to be a lot of gangs and stuff like that. Absolutely.
The only time you trade lead is when they're trying to trade lead with you too.
Hey Herman, congratulations on your win today, by the way.
What'd you win?
He won a GAW from WWP.
Oh, okay. What happened, Joseph?
He ate the antelope.
Oh, that is bad news. Now I'm mad at you. You didn't share.
You all right, Joe?
I love Herman. He sent me some really cool pieces this year. Thank you, Herman.
What for, Joseph Lopez?
What's going on, Joseph?
Knee surgery. That's what Neil says.
What'd you have? What you getting done? Repair of ACL, PCL, meniscus. What?
What's up, 949?
Hey, 949, welcome. Suffer a wound that isn't healed. It's a boil that burst and never healed in my butt. In my butt. So that's definitely not the knee. Is it in the middle like a perineal cyst?
Hey, Bifrost. Hi, sweetheart.
Frost, how you doing, niece?
She said, go into bed. Just stop by to say hi.
Girl, love your work. You had a great premiere. You know, I can't wait until one day I can take you and your dad and everyone, and we're gonna go have some really good dinner. So do you want antelope? Do you want wildebeest?
Barbecued
Yeah,
wildebeest, baby.
bring the wildebeest. Okay, he says the wildebeest. You know, I got myself a crocodile about a week ago, but man, that was tough. You have to get them in the back of the neck, otherwise they have a fighting chance.
All right. She's like, y'all are nuts. Love you, sweetheart. Have a good night. Call me tomorrow, please. We'll see you.
Good night, Bifrost. Sleep good. Think of some really good artwork. Damn, that girl's good. She knows what she's doing.
She's a good kid. I am a blessed dad for certain.
Yeah, sure. And I'm a blessed adopted uncle.
She's fortunate to have you as an uncle. That's for certain.
I think it's the other way around. You should have seen what happened. I have this really horrible habit of recognizing which voice belongs to which female. And if I'm listening to one of the races and I have a hard time figuring out which voice was talking to me, well, at this one time, I also had Bifrost and Frosty on the other screen, and Bifrost was talking to me, and I kept answering stack in because I couldn't tell the difference between Bifrost's voice and Stack N's voice. Hey, Brad, how you doing? But getting back to what I was saying, yeah, the only time you want to trade lead is when someone's trying to give you their lead so they can get to your food and everything else.
Well, yeah, there are situations where you'll want to bring people inside your protective area, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to want to keep that to a minimum. But yeah, I kind of laughed when I heard say, well, you're going to want to have enough to be able to trade. And I was like, that is not one of those items you're going to want to trade.
No.
And initially, one of the other items you're not going to be wanting to trade is water until you find solutions in making sure that you have ways to replicate and replenish your water supply. That is one thing you're not going to want to trade initially as well.
Exactly. The only
Yeah.
time I can see ever wanting to trade lead is during peaceful times. If it's in peaceful times, yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah.
You know, a few years ago, during the time when COVID was hitting us, my son, who doesn't listen to his dad because he wants me to be wrong, years before, I'd take him out shooting, and I'd tell him to put the bullets back into their hiding spot. But we're going shooting. Yeah, we are. He says, but we need bullets. I said, we'll get them. Where are we getting them? I said, at the store. But that's a waste of money. So no, it's not. Put them back where it belongs. And he would fight me. Years later, he's newly married. COVID is at full force. Bullets aren't around. His wife tells me that he's mad because he only has a small handful of them for his 45. And he thought he got a really good deal going to one of the stores and buying a box or two of them. And then he realized he bought 9 mils instead of 45. And I called him up and said, I understand you made this mistake. He says, yeah. He says, well, I have 45s. I have 9 mils. And I'm big. I like 9 mil a little bit better than 45 because of the less kick. So just come on to the house. Give me your box of 45. No, 9 mils. I'll give you an equivalent box of 45. But that's you're going to be losing money in the deal. Well, there's losing money, and then there's family. So he brought it over, and he couldn't believe that. I said, one of these days you'll understand that family comes first. And at the same time, I knew he wanted to buy some more, and he was running low on money. So I reached into the safe. I pulled out a couple boxes of 308 Winchesters because years before my 308 was stolen, many years before that. I gave him the boxes of 308s. I said, these were bought by your grandfather. And he looked at the box and was like, Dad, do you realize how cheap these bullets were bought for? Because they were, the price was still on them. I said, no, they weren't bought cheaply. That's back when money would buy you more. It's not that the bullets cost more. It's that the dollar buys less.
It's a common misperception when people see that. They see that with numismatic coins, where it's like, oh my God, that was only $54. It was like, yeah, but that $54 back in the day was the equivalent of 500.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you've got to be careful when you look at old price tags and think, oh my God, they got a deal. Oh my God, things were so cheap. The value of the money back then carried much more weight. There was a question, and I want to kind of go back to this. L asked, hey, do rounds expire basically?
I don't think so.
They do. So if you look, again, it has to do with time. Storage has a lot to do with it, but it's kind of like the use by date for cheese.
What? Date for cheese?
I'll explain. So
Okay.
cheese by default is protected by the outer casing, which gets hard and it gets moldy and it creates a skin. If you continuously cut that skin off, you're going to ruin your cheese.
Okay.
Right. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that that cheese has that protective shell and that protective coating. And then the cheese, it'll get harder and smaller and compact, but it gains more flavor and it gains stuff like that. Okay. So, but when you're looking at rounds, you're looking at inefficiency. Yeah. So again, but let's say that you have, God, how do I say this and have it make sense? If you buy 1,000
In
rounds of
Russian?
World War II and you have stored them in many different places, if you buy older rounds, you can't guarantee how they were managed or how they were stored. If you keep in a OC stacker, I keep my ammo in a 90-degree safe with silica beads to stay dry. I don't know that I would keep it in a 90-degree safe, but you definitely want to keep one that's a little bit warmer. No, not about cutting cheese, Bellows. This wasn't a joke. It's about storing it, right? So again, if you're pulling your rounds out and you're moving them and you're shifting them and you're constantly doing stuff and you're exposing them to conditions of humidity, high, low temps, you're exposing them to like they say silica gels and stuff like that to make sure that you keep moisture out, but there's high moisture content. There are so many variables that go into an older round. Again, it's the expiration date. So it's kind of like the sold by date. So it doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that it's best used before this date. So the sooner that you can use them, the better. But again, and that's another fact. If you make your own rounds, you normally don't have to worry about that. But again, buying ammo, and you can barter your crappy ammo. But buying ammo, there's too many variables because you don't necessarily know where it was made. You don't know how it was stored. God forbid the person who created those rounds didn't know how to properly measure the load, and they either under or overloaded it. You could be in a serious trouble. So there's a lot of stuff about storing ammo you need to make sure you're aware of. But just like with anything, you need to do some due diligence and understand what it is that you're stacking and you're storing. So it sounds like a really easy answer. Oh yeah, it's good forever. It's not. There are so many variables that go into it. Just like we're talking with numismatics and stacking, do your due diligence. Make sure you understand where that came from, who created it. If you're buying it from known rounds or known people who done that, kind of look at the packaging, see if it's all soggy and wet and all the lettering on the outside is kind of all faded and looks like it's blended into each other. You may not want to have those rounds because the potential for misfire or things of that nature could be there. So again, do your due diligence when you're stacking that stuff and make sure you protect it.
Yeah, I keep mine in different types of containers. The old military metal containers, but they're also in their boxes. They're also, if they came how they were originally packaged, because the factories don't know when they're going to be sold and fired. So in my opinion, they don't want a bad reputation. So keeping them in the original packaging and then putting those packages in your containers, whether it's cloth or canvas or the old military metal types of containers, that, in my opinion, kind of keeps them good products for a longer period of time. I don't know if you all agree with me or not, but that's been my general thought.
Yeah, and Bill, thanks for asking the question about the silica packs. Yeah, you can put them in. You're definitely going to want to make sure that you keep them in low humidity. Same thing with stacking your metals. Now, gold, less of an issue. Silver, you pull silver out of the ground, you'll see a little bit of whatever on it. Gold, you pull it out of the ground, it's amazing, it's shiny. But you're not going to want to do that with your rounds, right? You're going to want to make sure you, as stated in here a number of times, Gary, temperature controlled, low humidity, stored in ammo cans. Store them in proper receptacles, right? You don't want to be sticking them in Tupperware containers. Store them in proper receptacles designed for it, right? It's just a security thing, and they also it's just safer for you. Plus, if you have a situation where you need to get out quickly, you want to be able to grab something and know exactly what's in that container.
Exactly.
So again, protect yourself. Be smart about it. Now, does that mean that you can't have something that is, hey, Pedro, what's up, bud?
Hey,
I'm
Pedro.
sure this guy's tired. Does it mean that you can't buy and stack stuff that's 30, 40, 50 years old? No, absolutely. I know people that have, Gary was joking about the 20,000 rounds he's got. You absolutely can have that stuff. But again, be smart about it, right? Stack it, store it properly. Just like your silver and gold, your numismatic items, do your due diligence.
Another thing I want to point out, because when we were talking about my son recognizing that the price was so much different, especially for those who haven't seen this. I think as older people have definitely seen it, and the younger people haven't. There's a video I did many months ago called Worsening Trends Exposed, where I talked about how money was different when I was a kid and things that have changed over the time. Go if you're interested, please go see that. I think it will help put things in perspective that how much our money does not buy compared to when I was a kid at 1962, or even more so when my grandfather was a kid in the 1890s. So
Oh, I remember taking $1 over to the 7-Eleven, not an affiliate, not a sponsor, by the way. And buying, you remember Gatorade gum?
I think I do.
Gatorade had a gum. You could chew it, had all sorts of crazy flavors. It was really strong. The orange one tastes like creamsicle. Really strong, great flavor. Lasted maybe 2 minutes. It was like the kind of stripe the stripe gum with the zebra on it. Which one was that called?
Zebra flavored?
No, it was the striped gum. It was the flavor stripe or something like that.
Hold on.
But again, I remember going to the local 7-Eleven and buying a Slurpee, buying the Gatorade gum or one of these like big league stripe. There you go. That's all it was. Yeah, just stripe. Buying a package of gum, big league chew stripe, the Gatorade gum, a Slurpee with a
Fruit,
buck
fruit stripe
fruit stripe.
gum.
Yep. And it was like 88 cents.
Wow.
Right now, you were to do that, it'd cost you like 13, $15. But again, I listened to, I loved sitting down when I was younger and listening to my grandparents talk about, complaining about filling your tank for like $9. They had these big trucks and it cost you like $9 to fill your tank. Um, I couldn't imagine filling a 25-gallon tank for $9.
Yeah.
Right. So the value, the money that we have, we're not getting better value for it. We're actually getting hosed. A lot of people just don't get it. Big League Chew. Yep, I used to eat that stuff all the time.
Pretend that you're
And
chewing.
you buy one of those big pouches for like 65 cents. It was just crazy. The small Slurpees were a quarter. So I know I could buy both of them. Usually we brought the fruit stripe or the Gatorade gum was 25 cents. So you could buy a small Gatorade or you could buy a Gatorade gum and a small Slurpee and be out about 60 total cents when you walked out the place. So, but I'll be honest with you guys. One thing that I do not do, and I did this because of my sons, is I am not properly stacked like I should when it comes to protection items. I have deemed to store items away from the house because of safety and security issues. So I don't keep stuff at the house and I don't store stuff at the house. Um, Here in a couple of years that'll change. But again, it just I talk about it because I practice. A lot of experience military with the weapons, utilizing those things. But again, it's I'll just be honest with you. I don't have a stack of it. So if you ask me, how many rounds do you have? 25, right? Because I just don't have that stuff available to me because of the situation I had within my family. So it was for protection of my family that I got rid of a lot of that stuff. So I keep most of my stuff away from the house. So that's not going to be a wise move in an SHTF situation. So when I talk about a lot of this stuff, these are a lot of things that I have to enact myself. I just want to be straightforward with you guys, very transparent on that.
Oh
This
yeah.
is one reason I don't talk prepping because I'm not where I need to be in order in that regard.
There's a lot of truth with that. I'm a firm believer that you need to keep things close at hand, but you know, uh, I know for a fact if and when the day comes that my grandchildren will be allowed to come visit with us, I got to go through the house with a fine-tooth comb because I have them all hidden in strategic locations, and I'm going to have to come up with a new way to keep them from little tiny hands. I've come up with ways in the past. I'm going to have to come up with really inventive ways, because little tiny little people with little tiny little hands get themselves in a whole lot of trouble if they find what you've hidden.
It's important to teach kids the use that they're tools, right? YouTube me, you guys know me. We've talked about this the other day. He was here in town, surprised me, called me and said, "Hey, Frosty, I'm in town." So he came over and I brought him over, cooked him a meal, and we kicked back in the Frosty studios and visited and chit chatted. And he was appalled at the kind of work that I do. And he was like, "You need a real job." Um,
He didn't say that, did he?
yeah, he's like, "You get paid to do this, really? Like, seriously, slacker." But well, I'd taken the afternoon off. I just told him I was going to cover a single meeting, so he only got to see this much of it. He's like, "Hey, you sit on your butt in your underwear all day, taking phone calls." But the one thing we talked about is he's like, my kids understand that these are tools, just like a hammer, just like nails, just like a screwdriver. And it's like, yes, but your kids have something that actually I'm hungry too. Um, your kids have something that mine didn't have. And that was a level of self-discipline. I have one that
Oh yeah.
unfortunately just didn't understand that. And so uh, for the greater good of the family, I removed the items. For a long time, maintained a couple pieces and just told them, "Don't have it, don't have it, don't have it." And then things happened, and I was just like, "I can't do it." I had to get rid of them. So, uh, teach kids the importance of it, but understand kids will be kids.
Oh
Don't
yeah.
trust in what you think they know. Understand curiosity quite literally hurt the kitty. So
Oh yeah.
be careful.
Yeah. The way I was always taught my son when he was young, I'd buy him, water guns, and I'd teach him, this is a toy, but I need you to start pretending that it's real. Okay. If we're going to play, we have to clearly state this is playing. And you have to understand that during the period of play, okay, you don't have to follow the rules, because we're going to be pretending that we're at war with each other. So when you hit someone with the water gun, if it's a real gun, you're going to kill them. But I want you to treat this water gun as if it's a real one.
My
And
sons would squirt the hell out of me.
well, my favorite memory. Oh my goodness, so went with my ex-wife. My favorite memory was that he hid behind one piece of furniture, I hid behind the next one, and he called his mom into the room, and we ambushed her and we soaked her. But we clearly clarified that we're going to do this. But I even taught him. I said, when I was trying to teach him how to drive, I said, "Do you know what this car is?" "It's a car." "No, it's not more than a car." Finally, he gave up and says, "What is it?" I said, "It's a weapon. You can kill someone with this. You
Yep.
treat it with
Fact.
the same respect that you treat a gun." Oh, water balloons, Nickel. I teach them that was like a hand grenade, and he had to respect water balloons as if they were real. Let's see,
Well,
as long as they don't, it's all good.
I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, we were dumb. So
My son was so damn stupid. He
we
never
wrapped
he
we wrapped socks. Now, granted, we took the broadheads off the arrows,
hmm
but we used the blunt end of arrows. We wrapped socks around them and shot each other. We had bow and arrow battles with BB guns. Of course, we
hmm
we did wear glasses. We wore hats and stuff, but no more than one pump in the daisy red, and you could only pull back a little ways. We didn't use compound bows or anything crazy. But
hmm
we used to do BB gun wars and shoot each other with bows and arrows. Now, what did that teach us? Well, you got hit by a
Pain.
couple of those. You started to understand you got to be really careful because those Paintballs. Oh God, those are the same things. Those will hurt you like a mother. But we learned a lot of lessons about utilizing those, and that they were actually dangerous, right? We had one went through a sock and pierced my friend's shoulder. It barely broke the skin, but it pierced him pretty solid. Um, I got shot in the side with a pellet gun, and it lodged the 22 caliber pellet between my ribs. Fortunately, it hit the rib and bounced down, didn't shoot through, or it punctured my lung. Stupid stuff, right? Being ignorant, being dumb. And yeah, something like that. But again, it was just one of
A
those
green
things
arrow,
where,
boxing glove arrow.
yeah, but we did stupid stuff. The problem was that in that day, when kids got mad at each other, they threw fists down and then they went to the playground and hung out with the rest of their friends. Now that doesn't happen. Now you have an argument and they want to remove you from the face of the earth. There's a total, again, it's not, we don't have discussions, we have disrespect. And it's not the same. We don't have the same situation. The environment that we live in, it's just nuts. So we got to teach the kids. And again, it starts at home, right? It starts with us. We can blame the students, we can blame the infrastructure, but it starts with us. And we really need to teach our kids. We need to teach them how to be responsible and respectful. But I'm going to tell you something. You can bend over backwards, teach a kid all the lessons that they want. And if they don't want to listen to you, they're not going to listen to you.
There's some truth with that.
And it's a sad fact when you realize that they're going to have to learn the lesson the hard way. So.
That's true.
Oh. Yeah.
What?
Vote for
duked it
Pedro. I'm
out?
not going to read that out loud. Don't you read that out loud either. And don't put it up in the little tab. But yeah, that's probably not somebody any 14-year-old should have. Bad. Yeah, that's
Okay.
that's
not what I
problematic.
was going to show. What I was going to show this quote from Denzel Washington. If the father is not at home, the boy will find a father in the street. I saw it in my generation, every generation before, and everyone since. Bottom line.
That is one man I absolutely respect.
Oh yeah.
Man of integrity, man of wisdom.
He did not hold back. The left
Good
did
night,
not
West
like what he
Texas.
said. Good night, West Texas. Appreciate you coming. But no, he blasted them. Said no. This starts at home. They need the father. This breaking down of the family structure. They need the father. Yep.
This is one of the things that I joke about my ex-wife all the time because of the situation we had, and we don't necessarily agree on a lot of life. But the one thing that we do agree on, we didn't always agree on it, is that when it comes to my daughter, when it comes to Bifrost, there are times where we're going to agree to disagree, but generally we are on the same page. And that is extremely important for the kid. Even though the relationships between us don't work out, kids need both parents. Now, there are situations that arise in which the parent have to be removed. I'm not talking about those situations. I am talking about the full embodiment of a person comes from mother and father. And we can argue that if you want to. You will not change my mind. But I will tell you that in order for your kid to be a fully developed person, they need a man and a
turn
woman
left on
in their
South
life.
Avenue R. Then turn right on US 70 East.
Phone going off. Okay, it stopped.
I don't know,
Sorry.
I said, change my mind, and it gave me directions. It's like, that's not what I meant. But again, yeah. So when you're talking about the fundamentals, there are lessons. And I talked to my daughter about this. My daughter and I have a really, shit for a minute. My daughter and I have a really unique perspective on the father-daughter relationship. My ex and I didn't get along for a long time. There was some nasty stuff that happened, and we just didn't like each other very much. And I tried to do everything I could to not allow her necessarily to walk all over me, but to present myself in a situation where I always maintain that integrity and respect. So when my daughter got older, she could always go back and say, my dad didn't fight using me, but my dad always fought for me. I never wanted my daughter to think that she was a tool in my arsenal. I never wanted my daughter to think that she was a piece, a pawn in the game that was happening between her mother and me. So there were a lot of times where people are like, man, Frosty, you're letting your ex-wife walk all over you. And it's like, no, actually, it has to do with me understanding the end game. And that is, I want a relationship with my daughter when I get older. I want her to understand that she was not a pawn in this game. And the people in that family that utilized her as a pawn, my daughter now very well recognizes and understands that. But my daughter and I have a really unique perspective on something. And my daughter and I can talk about things many dads and daughters don't talk about. Now, I know there are other people in here who have a relationship like that with their kid, and that's amazing. And I'm so happy that that happens. But what makes me sad is this. That shouldn't be extraordinary. That should be the norm. And so often this becomes the extraordinary. When my daughter was born, 6 months later, my ex-wife took her and came to Texas and left me alone and said, if you want to be a dad, you have to follow me. Quit my job, sold my house, talked with the only person I knew in Texas and said, do you mind if I come live with you until I get my job? Because what mattered most to me was my daughter. People are like, oh my God, you're an extraordinary dad. No, that should be the norm, right? Defending our parents. Unfortunately, it's not the fact. It's not what happens most commonly. And this is the fundamental breakdown of our society. Fathers be fathers, mothers be mothers. Because when they understand that lesson, when they grow up, they have a much better chance of passing that stuff on. And that's how we change society. That's how we're going to make a change in America. That's the only way in which it's going to happen. Because our kids are our future. Our kids are our generation. So we need to teach them the lessons.
And hopefully they'll take it. In my situation, my ex-wife and I couldn't get along. She wanted me to become her father and wanted me to be something I wasn't. Wanted me to be a religion that I wasn't, and an ethnicity that I wasn't. We fell apart. And it took me a while because I had my own practice, my own family practice in North Carolina. But I worked diligently to get a job up in Pennsylvania where they were at. And didn't tell her because I didn't want her to sabotage it. But I worked diligently to get a job and got a job there. And in my world, organizations hire and let doctors go over politics more than over what's real. So a couple times I ended up having to get a job further away, but always worked back towards trying to get a job as close to him geographically as possible and spend time with him as much as possible. Could I have just gone on my own merry way and just sold myself to the highest bidder? Yeah, but I didn't want the money. I wanted my son. I wanted a life with my son. I was miserable without my son. So, it's that it wasn't only that I was raised to be a dad. I was also raised that your family comes first, and that is where you get your joy from. So I agree with you.
So do me a favor, post the comment that Vote for Pedro posted just a second ago.
Looking.
Wisdom. Can't teach wisdom. If you can't find it, I'll go ahead and read it. Vote for Pedro said that my greatest frustration as a parent has always been that I can't teach wisdom. I really wish I could. Yeah, it sucks. I can't stand watching my kids do something and look at them and go, didn't I teach you better? Like, don't touch the stove. We all hear that as an example. Oh my God, it was hot. Okay, that burns, right? That's what happens. And they're like, well, maybe it won't happen the second time. Oh yeah, don't do that. Like I said, I'm going to turn the stove off. Okay, well, is it still hot? Yes. Oh, it's still hot. I just told you it was hot. Some people just have to live that. Some people just have to go through that. And that is one of the hardest things as a parent. My wife struggles with it dramatically. Like, she has such a problem watching our boys do something and going, babe, they just have to learn the hard way. It's not that I don't love them. In fact, I would love that if they would listen to me and I could guide them and have them learn the lessons before I did. This is why I want to teach them about silver and gold, and they just want to know, hey, how much is it worth? Well, I understand worth, but do you understand the importance? Well, I don't have time. I need to get back to my game. And it's like you're missing out on a very important component. My daughter sits down with me and will listen to me for a while and go, hey, Dad, my brain's on overload. Oh, outstanding. Go do your drawing, go do whatever. When you want to talk more about it, come talk with me. And then she will actually search me out and say, hey, you were talking about this the other day. Or Tiger sent me a coin. Or, hey, I got this friend who gave me this quarter and it had a W on it. Didn't you say something about the W quarters are cool? It's like, oh yeah, actually it's really cool. And I can explain what it is and what the potential value of this. And then she'll ask me if I want to buy it. It's like, sure. What will you sell it to me for? Tell me the good, tell me the bad. She goes, it's really beat up. And I'm like, okay, so it's damaged or is it just circulated? She goes, no, it's pretty damaged. Like, okay, so what would be a fair price? And she's like, I don't know. How would I find out? So I'll take her to places and I'll show her how to do that. She has to come to me with that in order to do it. Most of the time she doesn't want to talk about it. Right. So yeah, Pedro, man, I completely understand. I wish I could impart all the stupid stuff I did into my kid's brain and go, and so they're doing something like, oh, hold on, wait on. Yeah, that will result in me getting hurt. Oh, better not do that. Unfortunately, I just have sons that are like,
boys are just like that.
I need to learn my own lessons. And it's fine. It's the normal part of being a guy. But sometimes it's very hard, not necessarily hard for me. My wife accuses me it's because I'm a stepdad. It's like, no, it's because I am a dad. I just understand. I've been there, done that. Sometimes you have to learn. She's like, I was never that way. It's like, well, Bifrost isn't that way either, but you guys do things a little bit different. But I know people that they never had a hard day in their life and they just don't understand. They'll never get it because they've never had to experience it. They always had either money or somebody to support them and back them up. I won't raise my kids that way. I need my kids to understand that there are situations, that there are issues. And yeah, happy Veterans Day tomorrow, all, because it's already today.
Oh, I didn't know it was Veterans Day. Happy Veterans Day, everyone.
Tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
11-11.
Well, I remember my son, he was living with his mom, my ex-wife, and he would have all these bruises all over. Like it started off as paintball, then they started shooting guns at each other with rubber BBs in it, and then it graduated to regular BB guns. I'm like, what part of you treat a gun like it's a real weapon did you not learn? And then it graduated into more stupid stuff later where they would take those handheld tasers, the ones you can buy in stores, and then discharge it on each other thinking it was funny. Like, where's your brains?
Well, in some places you have to, if you're going to buy a taser, you actually have to go to the police department and they actually tase your ass once so that you understand what you're about to do to somebody else.
Well, these ones were shaped in the shape of a flashlight, and they were flashlights, but they also had the taser-like thing, like it was, you had to actually physically put it on the person rather than a taser gun. But one day I come home, where's my special flashlight? Oh, I took it with me over to my friend's house. Why? Because we tased each other with it. Okay. You're not my son. My son would be intelligent. Who the hell are you?
Well, no, again, we're talking about let me fix that. My
Zardos, I don't know how many volts. All I know is if I put it on you, you're going to not like me too much.
I got my ass beat for throwing snowballs at my brother that was hunting with it. Oh yeah. Right. The potential for being shot or doing some sort of stuff. Oh hell yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a big no-no, right? You don't want to do that kind of stuff. You don't know potential slip or something happens, that gun could go anywhere. That's definitely a no-no.
Most certainly.
Yeah. Yoxnav said something, and I want to address this because being a stepdad, I get this too. I had a stepdad, and it's a lot harder to have someone that comes into the family when you're already in high school. It's just my situation. Can't speak to anyone. My kids, and I call them my sons. We've been married for 14 years.
Okay.
The oldest one is 25. So when I came into the fray, he was 9 or 10. Already trying to assert himself as the man of the family. He had been in. So my wife and I were both the third marriage. She made 3 tries. I made 3 tries. Yet we still met and decided to give it a go. So we're both number 3. He had been through some tough experiences with his stepdad, who was my youngest son's dad. Experienced a lot of frustration, a lot of situation, borderline abuse. And so when I came into the fray, he was questionable of me. He didn't know what to take of me. And he thought that every time I held him to the fire, that I was going to do something vicious. And I wanted to be there for him, but yet I also wanted to show discipline and do that. But for a long period of time, it wasn't my place to. It was his mother's place to do that. Now I could guide and say some stuff, but one day we had a conversation, and him and I walked outside and sat down, and I talked to him about some stuff that was going on, and him and I had some really, really frustration, or some just real frustration. Some harsh words were said. I told him if he didn't like the way I ran the home, then he could leave it. Wasn't required to be here at all. Things got south. He was gone for 24 hours, came back. Him and I had a real heart to heart and sat down on the patio. And he says, if you want to fix this, fix this. And he pointed at his chest. Well, I was like, what's wrong with your heart? Like, what's wrong? Did you hurt yourself? Whatever. And he's like, no, like emotionally, I'm all wound up. I don't know Like I'm looking for something, I'm trying to find something. And I asked him a question, and this was a question that I'm really glad I asked both my sons. Do you want me to be your friend? Be there, help you out, give you money, give you a place to stay, do all of that kind of stuff. There's stuff that comes with that that we need to talk about. Or do you want me to be your dad? I can't be both. Which one do you want me to be? And I explained that if I'm your friend, you're going to be paying for the house. You're going to be paying for your car. You're going to be paying for your own food. You're going to be paying for utilities because you're going to be a roommate. If you're my friend, you're going to be paying for these things. You're going to owe me money for living here. Now I'm going to do we'll go out and have a beer, do whatever. But if you want me to be your friend, there's going to be certain things that come with that. One of them is I'm going to allow you to just be you. But if you want me to be your dad, there's going to be rules that are put in place. I will take care of you. I will bend over backwards to make sure you have what you need. But if you're going to do stuff illegally and you're going to be in places you're not supposed to be, you're going to learn that lesson. That's on you. And when we had that, the conversations between my sons and I changed. The relationships between my sons and I changed. Now, the younger son, we had a little bit more issue with because of choices that he made. But again, you have to have those conversations that, do you want me to be your friend or do you want me to be your father? Now, in our cases, it was a little bit different. His dad was not in line with him. He wasn't really engaged with him, hadn't talked with him in years. The youngest one has a dad, seen his dad, did whatever. And I'm like, you don't even have to call me your stepdad. Just call me by my name. I don't mind. But understand when you're here, I have that position of authority and you're going to respect that. That's not negotiable. So there was a little bit of a more challenge with the younger one because of the situation he was in. So I am absolutely delicate to that and completely understand. But I gave my kids the choice. And when they understood that it meant they're losing a lot of the stuff that I provide for them, they made their choice and they started to understand that I was here to take care of them. We're not always going to see eye to eye, but if you want my protection, you want my support, I'm going to be the father figure. And I know you're growing as a man and you want to assert your dominance, but this is my house, my rules. We can discuss it. We can implement things that benefit you, but you're not going to challenge me in my own home. And there were some hard lessons that had to be learned, but we're good with it now.
I had the same thing. The very first serious girlfriend I had after I parted with my ex-wife, she had a daughter by someone else. I treated that little girl like she was my daughter, and I provided a roof, food, clothing. We played, we watched TV together, we did everything together. She was, I don't know, like 2, 3, but she had her mother's really rough temperament. And then one day she's standing on the couch, and for no good reason at all, the little girl kicked me right between the legs. And I let out a yell like there was no tomorrow. And she comes down, the mom comes downstairs, you will not yell at my daughter. So hold the horses. I'm good enough to be a dad to feed her, to buy her clothes, to put a roof over her head, to keep her warm in the winter, cool in the summer, play with her, watch TV with her. But when she is out of line, I don't have the right to discipline her. So this isn't going to work out. You know, if I can't be dad all the time, then I'm going to be dad none of the time.
Yeah, I'm not going to
And
be
we ended up parting.
I'm not going to be the physical provider. Come and go. No, that's not my role. Like I'm in all in or I'm all out. When we first got together, I was very clear with her that until it becomes my place, like until we're married and we've made that determination that you want me to support in that role, I that was her job was discipline. Now, I stood beside her when they were doing it. It's like, look, if she needs me to be an enforcer, I'll help enforce this. And the kids were like, always like, the guys like, no, we got it. We're good. But she was always the one to set that. As they got older, they needed me to be less of the enforcer and needed me to be more of the figure of the father and give them wisdom, give them nuggets. And whether they take it or not, that was up to them. My older boy, he's making his own path, but there's a lot of things that we've discussed that he's listened to. He's heeded some of that. The younger boy's been kind of a roller coaster. There's been a lot of ups and downs. Bifrost. We don't always see eye to eye, but her and I have sit down and we have discussions in it. But again, there's a really unique relationship with her because of all the stuff that's gone on. So 3 kids, 3 totally different relationships, and that's absolutely expected. But again, all 3 of them have a dad, and I think it's very important for the home. Doesn't mean you're going to be problem free. Doesn't mean you're not going to have trials and tribulations. Doesn't mean things aren't going to be rough. But you can't have a balanced life by only having a single parent. My mom tried for years and struggled. Push
What?
mute.
Hold on.
That's the hotel telephone.
Yeah, I don't know why in the world they're calling me.
Answer it
Well, I'm trying to find the mute button. Hold it.
on StreamYard, dude. Not on your phone. Well, if the hotel's calling, there's usually a reason. So he misplaced one of his bags. They probably found it. Tiger might have to go here pretty soon. Hey, Victoria, what's going on? Good to see you. Well, hey, folks, if I haven't said so, thanks for being in the stream. I appreciate it. It is a landline. He's at the hotel. That was definitely a hotel phone.
Give me a moment. They think they found my backpack. I'll be right back.
What did I tell you? They found his bag. We were talking about the potential that he lost that. So hopefully they found the bag. Hopefully they found everything that's in it. Because he had a lot of, I think he had, if I remember correctly, between 12 and 15 ounces of silver in there for a video that he was doing, along with some paperwork and stuff. So hopefully everything that he had in that bag is still there. That would be really important. Yeah, I know. I was like, dude, out of all the bags you have, the one with the silver would have been the one that I've been holding on tight to. Oh yeah, this trip has been a joke for him. He's had they lost his baggage. In his baggage is his virtual YouTube studio that has all sorts of stuff. They went to get a rental car and then sent him to Roswell, only to find out that the airport closes at like 5 o'clock. So he drove all the way over there to find out that he couldn't do it. So he drove all the way back home. He's just had a nightmare. But he had the opportunity. He had to go to Lubbock because they found his baggage. So he had to go to Lubbock to pick it up. So he had to drive the 2-hour drive or whatever it was. So I got a hold of Ringmaster Ray, who lives there, and I said, hey, connect with Tiger. And they got to meet and have dinner and visit and hang out. So he was able to have some little fun in this adventure. But man, it's been Roswell, New Mexico. And it was funny. He was driving and it disappeared. And I was like, well, ladies and gentlemen, I was talking to Tiger, and then there was a bright light and he just disappeared. He's like, oh, I was like, maybe a UFO picked you up. But anyway, yeah, so he's had a rough trip of it. So hopefully they did find his bag, and hopefully his silver and stuff has been in it, because that would be a total bummer to cap off a found bag to be missing. I think it's between 14 and 15 ounces of silver. So Herman says, I was born there. Really? I've been through there a couple of times. One of my favorite places to go in New Mexico is Truth or Consequences and Elephant Butte. I love Elephant Butte. It's a beautiful place. Great impression of me. Oh, too much fun. We've lost that skill. Let's see. Good thing of the Army and the opposite. I always expect the worst. So if for a long time, I would do the same way. I was always the antagonist, the protagonist. I don't know which one it would be. Where it was like, well, having so many things go wrong that I'll just look at it. If something good happens of it, it's a bonus. And I found that I lived a very difficult existence for a while when I did that, because you don't really have anything to look forward to in that regard. It can put you into a kind of funky state. So find something of interest and really dig into that. Really kind of focus on those items that, one, you have the opportunity to change, that you can impact, and do it. This is one reason ask me, any jokes. I tell these dad jokes all the time. And I do it because telling a dad joke one time to somebody had a traumatic impact on somebody's life. So I do it because, one, I love to laugh, but two, because you never know what kind of thing. So find something that you enjoy. Find something that helps you smile. Do I have any jokes? Yes, I do. So I sent my daughter, hey, Tiger, did I tell you that I sent Bifrost to the grocery store?
Okay. Why is that?
I asked her to pick up some karate trees.
Okay.
She's like, Dad, what's a karate tree? And I said, what? You've never heard of broccoli? Did they find your backpack?
No, it's someone
Oh.
else's.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hoping that somehow a miracle will happen. Usually it does. But, I don't have an extreme amount of sensitive material in there, but I got some.
Is
Well, I'm just
is
gonna
OC
have to
still
watch.
in here?
Let's find out. Let's see. Yeah, he's still here. He might be distracted. He likes to play with his silver at nighttime.
So I wanted to ask Nickel if they knew that they were changing the Golden State, the model for California, to the cereal state. Did they know that? It's because of all the Frosted Flakes and Fruit Loops that they have there.
Oh, crap.
Oh, anyway, yeah, I got 1,000 of them. I love doing jokes. I probably don't do it as much as I should in the streams, with me doing the stuff that I do within the shorts. But again, I like having people laugh and joke around. So I joke about Texas being nicknamed the bakery state because of all the rolls that are here. But yeah, it's a lot of fun to kind of joke around, pal around, do the dad joke. Yeah, well, yeah, that was why they were calling it the grape cereal, because it was full of nuts.
To answer your question, Nickel, this was after my dinner with Ringmaster Ray last night. So I know you keep wanting to talk about gloves, but my hands were right there. So they didn't take my hands with my backpack. So I hope that answers your question and quit spreading rumors. Your mama has got to be seriously ashamed of you, dude.
Hey, Tiger, can you pull something up for me?
Yeah, what's up?
Medically. I need to get some
Mentally,
sleep soon.
mentally corrupted?
Mentally corrupted, not medically corrupted. Said, did you see how many or how much of California was actually red counties? Can you pull up the county map?
Okay, let me work on that.
I think I have one. Yeah, but here we go. I got it.
Something's coming up.
Interesting. It's not allowing me to share my screen.
For crying out loud.
There you go. Click down below. And why is it? It's because Sacramento, San Francisco, LA, and San Diego are all blue. Just because of the population centers. Yep.
Yeah. And now you see the wisdom of our forefathers. You know, our forefathers who started this country, they absolutely had the wisdom of the ages. Instead of having it strictly as a straight democracy, by putting the electoral college into place, by creating a Senate where each state has two senators, and then giving the amount of the rest of it to the House where it's based upon population. You are able to have checks and balances in the whole thing. So you can see the wisdom that comes from what our forefathers actually put together, just by that one image alone. Let me I'm going to try to give you here. I'm going to pull mine up here. 2020 versus 2024. More turned red. And if it continues, because I was watching a YouTuber by the name of the YouTube channel by a name of Meet Kevin, and his live stream today, he mentioned he ran for governor. So I guess he's pretty well known in California, but he was saying that he and his dad were talking that California looks like it's going to turn more and more red over time. At least that's their prediction. And because too many people are getting disgusted with the total left wing everything. But
Hey,
what I've
Lisa, I didn't
noticed
see
here,
you come in. Have a good night.
good night, good night. Was that Lisa Anderson you said? Good night,
Yep.
Lisa. So basically, what I'm seeing here is between the people who were totally disenchanted with the way things have gone and left the state, and the people that have switched in their opinions because they think things were better 4 years ago. There is a potential that could happen. I think they're going to fight like crazy to keep it blue and keep it woke and keep it liberal, but that's probably going to be a potential swing state in the future.
Yeah, so pull that back up.
Pull it up.
Not that, the other one. I'm pulling up a couple that people have here. Let me zoom this in a little bit, make it a little bit bigger.
Oh, I also heard on that same live stream where Kamala is about ready to announce she wants to run for governor for California.
So these are some of the things. You look at the population centers. St. George is a big one. Provo, Salt Lake City for Utah. Utah is like a diehard red state, and the major component was blue. That was a surprise. This wasn't much of a surprise, but this definitely wasn't a surprise. Tiger and I have talked about this, but
Yeah.
population centers: Dallas, San Antonio, Corpus, Houston. Lots of blue showing up in Texas. So a lot of people actually were concerned about this. Bellows, I used to live in a couple different places in Utah. Spent time in Washington, down by St. George, and then spent a lot of time up in Sandy and Harriman up in Utah. Showed about Florida earlier. Palm Beach, Orlando, Jacksonville. This one was close.
Yeah, it always seems to be the centers, the cities, they always want to tend to go blue. That just doesn't make very much sense.
Yep, city centers, big cities.
Yeah, yeah.
But these are population densities. So again, when you look at the population densities, we're the majority people in the state. I mean, you look at Nevada. Nevada's a great one. How much of this area here is populated? A lot of it's big ranch, desert, farmland, big cattle land, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So you look at a lot of these places. This one actually surprised me. I'm surprised at how much red there was in Oregon, or how neutral they were. But independence. So, but yeah.
Can you do me a favor and slide over to West Virginia just to see what that was, since, makes me curious. A little bit toward the upper left corner. No, that would be Maryland. That's going into Pennsylvania. Here we go. Totally red.
Not much of a surprise there. Just like Baltimore or DC being blue, right? The District of Columbia.
But the interesting story about West Virginia is they always used to be totally Democratic, totally blue. But what happened was, with this whole Green New Deal, everything, every time the Democrats got into power, they'd shut down the coal mines. The Republicans got into power, they'd open up the coal mines. You cut down the coal mines, you cut off a lion's share of people unable to support their family.
Yeah. When you look at this actually, I think Biloxi and Tupelo, is that Toledo or Tulepo?
Toledo's in Ohio.
Yeah, this surprises me a
That's
little bit.
what the cities didn't turn red.
Yeah. Oh, I clicked on Alaska and it disappeared. It's red. This doesn't surprise me. So, Yeah, there were some things that I was quite
I
surprised
wonder
about.
if it's, the cities because they have more places to party.
Tupelo.
What do you think?
Say that again.
Maybe because the cities are concentrations of places for people to go party and act wild and crazy that they think that should be the norm.
Well,
Don't
so let's look at
maybe.
the level of blue, right? So the darker the color, the heavier it is. Austin is deep, 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 deep blue. Now, if you've ever been to Austin,
Uh,
median population of Austin, I think, is 27.
uh-huh.
It's the capital city, folks. Median age is 27 years old.
Wow.
Okay. Now you come over here to San Antonio, median age is, 38, somewhere in that area.
Okay.
But again, look at the demographics, right? This is very, very liberal, very, very left wing. Like you go up there, these people will beat you, just like in Portland, for being a Trump supporter, Trump rally. It's like some places up here are crazy. I
Mhm.
live here in this area.
Okay.
So, well, actually, I live here, right there, about the tip, right in that area. So I go up here all the time, and it's like Portland. It- Portland's a mess. Um, so we talk about city centers, yes, and there are different groups and demographics. So when you look at Dallas, again, 9 million people, 8.5 million people. I think there's 10 million people in Dallas. 8 million people, 9 million people in Houston. Again, when you look at the demographic, you look at the city concentration, the city centers. What's the demographic in many of these places? Um, so I understand why your major city centers are going to be this, and most of your people that have large land, when you look at these areas that are now, there's a lot of area in between here that's highly populated, but there's a lot of farmland. They have different items through here. These are landowners, right? So they have direct impacts on what's going on, and small business and taxes and tax breaks and subsidies and stuff like that. So they're really concerned about a lot of this stuff. But the people who are around these city centers don't necessarily have those issues. They don't necessarily have to deal with a lot of those issues. So you see these city centers focused more towards democratic morality, because they don't have to deal with a lot of the other stuff. They just 9 to 5, go to work, do their stuff, do whatever. Now, I'm not saying that for everybody, so I'm making a very blanket, probably bad general statement. But again, when you're looking at population densities, and that's why. How many college kids own property in Nevada?
Probably not very
They,
many.
they don't, but yet where do they lean? And so again, it's a level of responsibility and ownership and stuff like that. So when you look at your positioning, what you have, you look at some areas. We know California is uh, definitely blue. There are encroaching areas of red, because as they identify stuff and they look at things, again, it's one of those things where we look at um, different centers. But again, yeah, I mean, you don't talk politics. I understand. I'm not talking politics. I'm just talking demographics. But why do certain areas end up with that? It's because of population densities. The higher the density, the more likely you're to be to have higher and lower stratifications of socioeconomic status. And it's those diversifications, that socioeconomic status, that is going to help you identify who's going, and not always, but who's going to lean which direction. My opinion. Okay, my opinion. I am not a skilled political major. I'm not a political science major. I don't do this for a living. So
That there's some truth to that. I saw something on YouTube where I think it was ABC showed a map of the United States and showing how Harris did compared to Biden, and throughout the entire continental United States, she didn't have anything that she did better than Biden anywhere. Every area showed that Biden outdid her 4 years ago. So she was not as well chosen, which I think was also. I think the Democratic Party expected the gender and racial issues to be more important than what people were feeling in their pocketbook. And I think it backfired on them.
one thing that they need, and again, having before I worked at the job I work now, I dealt with nonprofit entities, and we dealt with low social economic status people who were prone to drug addiction. I won't get any deeper into that. And so we saw a lot of depravity. We saw a lot of just pure destitute here in Texas. We call it the barrio. And it's very, very low. There's a lot of problems, lots of drugs, lots of issues. And when you look at programs, right, and you're in an area, you're in destitute, all you hear is, what can they do to help me? And so one of the major tenets of one of the parties was socioeconomic class, so socioeconomic programs. And it sounds really good to people who don't have one basic understanding. Where's it going to come from? Who's going to pay for it?
The taxpayers.
Not just the taxpayers, but there's other programs that are going to get
Most
that are going to
certainly.
be cut. I'll give you a great example of something that people were so freaking happy about. How many people, if you can put a 1 in chat, were really excited to hear that you were going to get 2 years ago a stimulus check in the mail for $1,400 or whatever the price was? It was free money, outstanding. You were going to get the stimulus check. It was done. Very cool. No problem. Or let's talk about the one that happened under another president, and you got this money, and it was outstanding, and everybody was so happy to hear this. It was really cool. And then they dropped the ball and said, oh, by the way, you have to pay this back in your taxes.
Oh,
If
you're
you
talking about
don't
the
pay,
$750 from New York. You're talking about the
there,
$750 to be offered to North Carolinians
oh no,
after the hurricane?
it was a bigger one, and there were 2 stimulus checks, and they ended up telling everybody they had to come back and they had to pay it back, and it was going to be taken in taxes and penalties, and you were going to have to pay for it if your median income was less than 95,000 or whatever it was. You could write the IRS and you could say that you didn't want one. They wouldn't send you one. But they sent a whole bunch of them. Oh God, yeah, we won't even go there. I didn't even mention the name on purpose, mentally corrupted. But a lot of people got absolutely screwed in their taxes. And tons of people were charged fines for not having
Right.
enough taxes taken out. And everybody was so happy with this. Everybody was so happy. They were giving away free money. And it's like, it's not free money, folks. You're going to have to pay it back. And it kicked people's ass. So you've got to be very careful. People will use honey. You know, people say shit catches flies, so does honey. So you've got to be very careful to understand that it changed people's brackets. It put people into new categories. They shifted stuff around. There were people that spent hundreds of dollars. It cost me about $2,500 outside of fines and paying taxes back because it stuck me up into a different tax bracket. My wife started earning more money, put us into a different level. We got out of that, but we ended up paying penalties and fees. Yeah, that's true, aka Brett. Money is honey. And if you work in that profession, honey is money. I didn't say that out loud, did I? It's late.
Before you go on, I want to point this out because we're dancing around a subject that was said 60 years ago. And I'm going to point this out because a lot of people for a lot of decades are only interested in what they can get from our government. And I want to point out to you what one of the wisest presidents we've ever had tried to teach people, and they still need to learn that lesson. Ask not what you can do for your country. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Yeah.
That's what makes our country weak or strong.
But again, it boils down to one thing, and that's people understanding what's being said, the rhetoric that was being spit. Now, I'll tell you that a lot of people who they were like, I know who I'm voting for. You're not going to change my mind. And when we started talking about finances and money and what the taxes, one of the things you heard, I'm going to have to turn my light off here in a minute because my eyes are really bothering me. I probably need to go to bed shortly.
Yeah. We've been at it a while too.
One of the things that was said was that, well, we're going to have to tax the business people. We have to get more money from the rich. We have to tax those business owners. We have to tax those people in business. And everybody's like, yes, 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 the rich have got to pay. But what they don't understand is that that was a tax on the poor. And people don't understand that that was a tax on the poor because, yes, you're going to charge the rich. You're going to charge the people who are owners. You're going to charge the people, the coin shop owners, the supply teams. You're going to charge all these people more money only to have it passed on in the stuff that they pay. It might be in groceries. It might be in gas. It might be in electricity, utilities. It might be in housing costs. It was definitely insurance, just in case you guys didn't know that rates went through the damn roof. So when you look at these, those things are definitely being pushed on, but people don't understand when they hear this. All they hear the rhetoric is that stick it to the man. Well, understand what that means. Yes, in certain situations, there are loopholes for big business, but in many cases, they utilize that to lower the cost so that the consumer can save a little bit. Not in every case. And in those situations where people abuse that, they need to charge them fines and penalties because of that. They need to have certain things put into place where it allows you to reach caps. You got to be careful being a monopoly and certain things like that. There are processes that need to be put into place to protect the consumer. Absolutely. But when you looked at the way that they were going to do this, they were talking about giving a poor people tax, but they were utilizing the rich to do it. And people just didn't understand. And I was talking to friends about this, and I was like, let's break this down. So let's look at the general cost of this. This is what's going to happen. So you work in a supply chain. This is what's going to happen. Let's talk about this. And we started breaking it down. You're going to be charged more money in this. Yeah, I understand. We're just going to pass it on to our consumer. And I'm like, so who's being taxed? And
Consumer.
they're like, oh, shit. I didn't think of it this way. And I was
They
like, I
never
want
do.
you to think about what's being said. Now go back and listen. Tariffs. Oh, yeah. I want you to go back and listen to what's being said. And I want you to listen to what she's saying. I want you to listen to the words. I want you to go back through. I want you to think about who's the effect. So do the 5 whys. Whenever you look at something that when you break down a problem, the 5 whys. Well, it's because it's this way. Why is it that way? Well, because of this. Well, why because of that? Why because of that? Why because of that? Ultimately, you get to the root cause. So when you get down and you look down into things and you finally get to the root cause, what were they targeting? This is an absolute tax on the poor. People started to understand that. And when people started to understand that, some tones changed. And I think a lot of America went back and said, no, 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 no. We don't like that. If they would, and if they only stuck, and I don't, you guys have to help me if I'm wrong, because I didn't catch a lot of some of this. But in some of the debates that you and I watched the debate, Tiger, we debriefed it afterwards.
Yeah.
I watched some of a secondary debate. I watched some of the vice president discussions. I watched some of the political stuff, but much of it I just wasn't really digging into the specifics of. I really wasn't overly engaged with it because I was so tired of the rhetoric. But I never heard anything regarding policy on finance from that, only social. The whole premise was social change. And you can't change the mind of the business owner, the people who are trying to make a living, when all you're talking about is social construct. Because eventually the question has to be asked by one person, how are you going to pay for it? Well, we're going to raise taxes. Oh, well, I thought you said you weren't going to do that. Well, we're not going to do it to everybody, but we're going to do it to this set of people. Oh, these set of people who are generating. So what happens when they can't afford to do people? How is that going to affect jobs? Well, hold on. Well, no. We're going to have programs that boost jobs. Oh, so you're going to boost jobs to boost the revenue, to charge more money to the taxpayer for the goods and services, because they're going to have to pay for that employee. They're going to have to pay for the extra service. They're going to have to pay for the tariffs. They're going to have to pay for. So explain to me how this is beneficial. Explain to me how this isn't a tax on the poor. And so I'm not even going into I'm not talking about the candidates. I'm just talking pure topic, right? I don't want to get into the topic of the candidates. I could give a rat's ass less about the candidates. I wanted to hear the topics, because the topics are what's going to curve and affect our nation. And I never heard them talk about the topic. When they were prodded to it, I heard one thing and it always pissed me off. And I always pushed the power button as soon as she started saying this. Well, I came from a power. I don't need to know that. I want you to answer the question. Okay.
Oh, certainly.
That was my thing. Answer the questions. And if you look at it, it all was screw GQ public. And I didn't like that. Now, happy Veterans Day. Good night, Gary. Appreciate you, brother. Thanks for
Good night,
coming in.
Gary.
Yeah, I got to get to bed too. It is creeping up on date. I will say one thing. If you were a fan of her, or if you're a fan of him, it's fine by me. Doesn't matter to me. That's what makes this country great. You have your insight. You have the ability to vote for who you want. America decided. And now what we can do, our greatest option, is to understand the policies that are being put out there. Write your Congress people. Make a change. Don't just vote on lines vote on items. Pay attention to what the people are doing. What are they voting for? Go look at the recent votes in your local area and find out what topics they're voting for. Find out who voted what. If you're leaning to somebody and you're coming up to an election, you want to do something about it, learn how they vote. Learn what side they lean. Don't listen to what they say. Watch the actions. Look at how they vote in things. That's what's going to speak volumes. Start paying attention to the census. Find out how your delegates vote. Find out. So here in Texas, we have a delegate, and I pay attention to his votes very carefully. I want to know what he does, because if he starts to swing and shift, Mr. Ted Cruz, hey, you got a constituent that wants to know how you're doing. So if I am not happy with the way I see things going, or he starts voting for stuff that I'm not with, I'm going to be looking at his counterpart. And I'm going to be looking at, what are they voting for? How are they looking at? They're going to be running against them. What is it that they're voting on? And if they are somebody that's in there and they're never in the vote, ladies and gentlemen, that speaks volumes, right? So go check how they vote. If you're interested in a constituent, you're interested in looking to see how one of the people that are running in your local area are doing, check their votes, because
Well,
that's going to speak a lot about what they do.
if they're not entering into votes, what does that mean? They're just riding the coattails and collecting a paycheck?
Yeah. Yeah, because if they're not entering into votes, now, I mean, obviously, yeah, the big ones you have to, because they'll come and they'll chase you down and tell you, hey, you need to do this. Well, look at your local ones and see what they do. See if they always vote no. It's a tell. Yeah, they're voting every time, but they vote no on everything. Or maybe they vote yes on everything. Then how really engaged are they? You can't agree with every bill. You can't agree with every law. So go check and see how they vote. Reach out to them. Do what Tiger did with Delegate Chris Pritt. Reach out to him and say, hey, I'd like to have a conversation with you. No, you don't necessarily have to do it online and talk about certain things, but tell him you have topics of interest and you'd like to talk to him about some of the things that are happening, or silver or gold in your area, right? If you want to make a change, it's work. You can't just say you want to make a change and then complain about it and expect something to happen. There are some things that you can do. So if you want to know more about how you can engage your local delegates, or you want to find out more on tracking their votes, yeah, do some due diligence. Let me know and we'll work that out. We'll get a political advisor. We'll get some people who really understand that. Maybe we can reach out to Delegate Chris Pritt and have him talk about, how do you find out how delegates voted in a specific situation? Where do you go to find out who was there? How do you find out some of these things? And we'll get it from the horse's mouth. You don't have to necessarily hear it from the opinions of Frosty, but let's reach out. Let's find those people and bring them in and have that discussion. You want to know stuff, ask us, and we'll do what we can to get information out there and make sure you have the best information possible.
Well, when Yockstaff, what I see that you put there, yeah, lobbying happens a lot, and there's a lot of money that goes off in lobbying. I'm sure a lot of politicians are on the take. I'm kind of hoping that'll be part of the draining of the swamp. However, if you love your country, if you care enough, if there's things that the people want bad enough, then it's going to take effort. It's going to take work. It's going to take a little bit of sacrifice. And you all have heard me mention this particular topic during Trump's first administration, when the airline companies, the ones with the big bucks, wanted the FAA to be handed over to them because they thought they knew better. Now, normally I'm not a big fan of more and more government and less power in big industry, but this is one of the things that government should never give control over. There they called it privatization. And every country that had privatization, the delays in the airlines went up, the prices went up. Canada's version, the prices of their tickets went up 56% immediately. You don't have as much control over your national airways, which can lead to you not being able to protect your country through strikes through the atmosphere. The governments need to control their own. What they had done at that time was blame so many things, like we are using antiquated radar from World War II, which was not true. The radar that existed at that time in Trump's first administration was by far loads better than World War II. There was also a push in the aviation industry to use NDSB, which is a three tier thing. You had ground stations, you had satellite stations, and every aircraft was supposed to be equipped with ADSB, which would not only tell you where the other aircraft was, but would also give you up-to-date weather so that you can make sound decisions while you were flying. The mandate was to be in place by 2020. At the time, 20% of general aviation had ADSB already on board. Less than 5% of the big companies had it in, and they had no intention on putting it in. They wanted to blame everything on the weather and on all sorts of other things. They pumped loads and loads and loads of lobbying money into getting this through. And a grassroots movement through general aviation stopped it. Grassroots can stop it, but it's going to take effort. We had people such as Morgan Freeman, who's a big aviator, and Harrison Ford, who is not only a big aviator, but he's also been proven to be a hero with flying his own aircraft in dangerous situations, such as forest fires. You had Sully, who landed the airplane in the Hudson, and just general overall people like myself constantly calling congressmen and senators to try to get this thing to be stopped. When we stopped it, otherwise we would have been a weaker country, and everybody would have been paying way more money for everything, because the fuel prices would have went up, so the ticket prices would have went up. So lobbying can be stopped. I'm just using this as one of many examples. Lobbying can be stopped to try to get uh, if it's important enough for you, then start a grassroots movement for whatever topics is involved. Get people involved, get the voice out there. Stop with something that is going to hurt the country. Show that you love the country more than you love to complain. Complain to the right people and frequently. That's how we fix it. So I'm done with that subject.
Yeah, I want to address the issue. And I stated this before. I've talked about this before. When we talk about government. Now, I don't get into the government argument. Do I think it's too big? It waxes and wanes. I don't care where you stand on the government. I want to be very clear about something. There's a lot of good men and women who work for our government that they just want to improve our nation. They want to support the men and women who serve our uniformed services. There are first responders out there that are trying to do a good job just to protect the general population. There are people who work in different fields, whether it be medical or whatnot, that are there to just do the best job that they can. But like any organization, anywhere in the world, there are people who are over entitled. there is a bureaucracy, there is a political engagement end that shadows that. And so I want to be careful when I talk about government in talking about what aspects. So let's be clear. It's really easy for us to use generalities, but what is it about it? Is it the elected officials? Is it the three services? Is it all the sub components? Are we talking DOD? Are we talking the Park Service? Are we talking social service entities? Are we talking? Because if you say all of it, well, then the protections that you enjoy through the armed services or the protections that you enjoy from national defense or the satellite, sat nav, GPS, all those systems are managed by military entities. So now, granted, there's private collections out there and they have their own satellites and stuff. But I want to be very clear. You got to be careful when saying that a lot of the amenities, a lot of the stuff that we enjoy that allow us the freedoms and things that we have are managed by government. So be careful when you're talking about that. When you're talking about having a problem with that, choose those areas and let's talk about specifics instead of making generalizations with that. Now, Ronald Reagan, who I absolutely admire, said that big government is a problem, right? I don't think that when the forefathers looked at our nation, number one, I didn't expect that they would realize that there would be, 200, 300, 400 million people in the United States 240 years ago. I don't think they had an epiphany that there would be that many people at all. I knew that it would grow, but we're looking at 800, 900, a million people employed by the government across all branches of DOD that serve in all nations or all aspects of the world. So when you look at that, yes, it's absolutely high, but at what cost? There are other things that we need to look at when we're looking at subsidies and where we spend our money. I would be more amped to look less at large government than I would look at where we spend our money. I would be more looking at fiscal responsibility in retrospect to that to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible, which means we need to get our house in order before we start throwing money elsewhere. Now, those are opinions, differences of opinions. Now, can I speak to those? No, again, I'm not a political science. I'm not a government major. I don't speak on behalf of that. But when we talk about that, just to be due diligence, let's talk specifics because it's really easy to use the government as a blanket term. But if you want to talk about change or you want to talk about making an impact, let's be specific. Let's talk about, well, you know what? Have you ever been on a road crew, Nickel? How come you have 3 people holding flags? You only need 1. Again, it's so we can utilize this in every category. I can get into a huge argument with you about this because there's a lot of redundancies, a lot of space. IT, there's so much redundancy in IT. You hire a lot of people that don't do the work. Now, I can tell you that I have worked for almost every branch of the military in my last 25 years. And I can tell you that in many cases, in the places that I worked for, we didn't have 3 spare people. There may be places that do, but I can promise you that that's not the case. Now, in many cases, there are, but I can tell you that most of it comes down to spending. Most of the issues come to spending, over budgeting, overpay, looking at things. And again, they look at this stuff, and this is when we look at social service programs. Every time that Republicans get into office, social service programs dwindle. Why? Because they're dropping billions of dollars in free money out to people. All those agencies have to hire people, right? They have to hire people to run those social service programs. So they reach out there, they grab a whole bunch of people to do what? Well, a lot of those programs are new. They're good idea fairies, but are they actually governed and monitored? No, but why are they there? Because they're social service programs, and that's what they were elected on. So there are areas we need to talk about. There are specific areas in the government that do need to be trimmed down. I can tell you right now that you do not want to cut the budget's Air Force when it comes to space and cyberspace. I can tell you right now, you're not going to want to cut the Navy budget too much more, especially when you're looking at the area around the North China Sea. You're not going to want to cut the Army's budget when it comes to working with them, and Navy working with the joint operations. Well, again, that's budgeting. That's overspending freaking awesome. That is not properly budgeting. That is government waste. If we had tighter constraints on that, that is not a government office, that is budgeting. And this is something that we need to look at. So we need to look at these things very carefully. It's really easy to throw basic statements about this, but we need to dig into those a little bit more and say, where is that problem? Most of the government's problem is fiscal, it's spending. And it's done, and it all stems from the worst freaking Christmas present, not to say freaking as in my brother freaking awesome, but the worst effing Christmas gift that the United States ever received. Anybody in chat can tell me what the worst Christmas gift the United States received in our history was?
You got me on that one.
I got an ounce of silver. I got a silver Libertad. If somebody can tell me what my answer is for that, it's right here. Just got it from Steve looking for silver. And if you can tell me what the worst Christmas present that we ever received in the United States was, I'll give you a Libertad. I've talked about it. Statue. Not the Statue of Liberty. And not Pearl Harbor. That was December 7th. Giving you a clue, guys. I'll give you silver. Give you another 30 seconds. I had a whole video on it. Talked about it in depth. The worst Christmas present we ever received. All right. Well, it's too early in the morning, and we'll figure this out. 1913. There was a document that was put into place.
Federal
that
Reserve.
Created an entity.
Federal Reserve.
The worst freaking Christmas gift the United States ever received. Ever since then, they opened the budget for fiscal irresponsibility. It is the single solest worst mistake that we made. It's the reason that big government spends too much money, because we don't have that check and balance that was actually designed and put in place by putting the gold and the silver standards in place. It's the reason that we got pulled off the silver standard. It's the reason we got pulled off of the gold standard. It's the reason that we have the $200 hammer, the $400 toilet seat. It's because we can write an unlimited amount of money, and we just requested in a new budget constraint the following year. So when we talk about government, make sure you understand what it is you're talking about. Don't just use it in arbitrary terms. We need to really understand what it is that we're talking about and why it's a problem. Because when we understand the why, it increases something called crystallized intelligence. December 23rd, 1913, it's the worst effing Christmas gift the United States ever received. Remember that. One day it's going to be for another ounce of silver. I promise you I'll say that again. But again, it's one of the things. Why do we have the issue? It's fiscal irresponsibility. This is why we have the situation that we have. It's not, again, don't look at government as the people. The people are there to do a job. There are people in those jobs that don't do their job appropriately, but we find that in any one of any industries that you can name. So let's watch it about the people and talk more about fiscal responsibility. Fiscal responsibility is what we need to focus on as a nation. And I think that we have some people in here right now who have that same tenet in place and understand what needs to be done. And I hope that we will start getting, you can't fire, well, you can now. That law changed last year. You can fire a GS government employee.
What law changed?
Well, before you couldn't fire a GS employee. It had basically was an act of Congress. And so in order to do so, there had to be so many levels of disciplinary action, and you had to go through and you had to put people in, but there are things that have been put in place. Maybe it's been 2 years ago, maybe even longer, where they changed from a 2-year to a 3-year probationary period and made it eligible for government civilians to be fired, basically upon 3 failed standards, performance standards, theft, things of that nature, automatic termination. There are also other ways of forcing out federal employees. So that's absolutely not true. That's a myth. It's been done away with, but the law was actually put into place that you're absolutely, GS employees are no longer untouchable. But yeah, that whole, you can't get rid of a government employee is not true. It's actually harder to get rid of somebody in the civilian sector because of loss protection and the potential of civil liabilities because of accusation in the public sector than it is in the government now. So it's just harder to know. Quite a few actually. I have a really good friend who's a GS-15 who got fired for inappropriation of funds. So yeah, I can tell you a couple if you really want. You and I need to talk one day, Nickel. I don't think you know what I do.
I'll tell you what,
Oh.
Frosty is like one of the most intelligent men in research, and he really enjoys it. I've done research in my career. Research is not my forte. I don't enjoy it. I'll do it because I have to.
Nickel, I can neither confirm nor deny that.
But Frosty, oh my goodness, this guy loves research. Absolutely loves research.
So my job for those people that most of you should know, I've said this again, and again, Nickel, according to that, I can neither confirm nor deny that. I'm not. She was manipulating funds and borderline embezzlement. I'm not sorry for her. She should have gone to jail. My job is process improvement. My job is to look at malfunctions within the system and look at things. Now, I do this with the work that I do, and I also do it within my YouTube. So I try to find information. Now, I don't like to be prone to conjecture. I do this. I talked about a video about this, that when I'm talking about the US Mint and some of the stuff that I did, look at it in the marketing, I made a conjecture and I stated that it was a conjecture very clearly. But normally I don't like to do this. This is why I don't get caught up in conspiracy theories. Tiger and I went round and round and I debunked 3 or 4 of his conspiracy theories by showing him documented evidence of what the history was and how it broke down and why they thought that and how they manipulated the terms in order to say that this is what it was, and showed them not only, in one of them, it was biblically, showed them not only biblically where it was counteracting exactly what he was talking about. So I enjoy doing that because I like being informed. But again, when we look at some of these things, very, very rarely, I will never say never, especially when it comes to me, because sometimes my mouth works about 40 miles an hour faster than my brain. So I will try very hard never to speak of something I absolutely don't know of. If I do, I will always come back and retort and explain why and where I went wrong, what my understanding was, and why I didn't understand it. So I'm very, very careful in making decisions and stating this. In the terms of government, I will not speak against it. Number one, I bled for my country. I'm 100% disabled vet because of what I did to defend my country. It's to defend foreign and domestic. And when you look at this, you can't just say that the enemy is this, because that means that everybody is wrong. And that's not good. Look and identify where those situations are. In my opinion, the number one issue with government is fiscal irresponsibility. Now, are there other issues within? Absolutely. But the number one issue in my end is fiscal responsibility. And if we can't gain fiscal responsibility, if we can't be smart with our money, then we're opening the doors to do more of what people complain about, which is making sure that we don't hire those extra people, making sure that we don't start those extra agencies, making sure that we don't do those other things, because we need to be very careful.
And I'm just as an example on that, if you look at,
I agree with that, Nickel. I agree with that. There are too many departments. I 100%
I agree
agree
with
with
that
that,
too.
but it all goes back to fiscal responsibility.
Look at the Department of Energy. Do you know who put that in place and why?
Energizer.
Good answer. No,
Oh, it was just because of your comment. I had to
I
do
know
that.
I'm messing with you, but it was Jimmy Carter, 1970s. Jimmy Carter just started the Department of Energy. What was its purpose? To decrease our need on foreign oil. Do you think they accomplished that goal? Yet they still exist.
You know, I love referencing pop culture in talking about things like this. And I don't remember which one it is, but it was the one where Bruce Wayne, I think it might have been the first one, or maybe it was Catwoman.
What?
It might have been the one with Catwoman. I can't remember. But it's the one where he was talking to the guy about his energy plant. And he was like, actually, I've done the research here, and this is actually, it like sucks energy out. It doesn't actually store it.
Oh, are you talking? Are you talking
Max,
about?
Max, whatever his name is.
Uh, if you're talking about Batman, you got to be talking about the one where it was the Riddler played by Jim Carrey. Is that what you're talking about? No.
Yeah, he pushed her out of the window and she became Catwoman. Yeah, Michael Keaton. But what was it number 2?
It was number 2.
I think it was number 2.
I'm almost
But
positive
basically,
it
his name
number
was
2.
Max, and he was the crazy guy, and he pushed her out the window. But he basically said, looking at the energy thing and kind of going through this stuff, I see your power plant, but it actually sucks. Power. This is how I view the Department of Energy sometimes. It's like they're not actually conserving us anything. They're actually spending more than they do. But again, if you look at kind of the general premise of some of these items, I'm not even going to say it. I'm not even going to say it. It's
Is it one of those you can't because of job stuff?
no, I can say it. I just choose not to. It's kind of an asinine statement. So it's I'll just be quiet. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah. I have to say the same thing you guys are saying. We have too many departments, too much bureaucracy, too many people on the taxpayers' payroll. I'm I have none of God's omnipotence, but I'm hoping with this current administration and with the desire for to get rid of all the bigger and bigger and bigger government, that we will take this huge government down to only what is absolutely necessary to make us work efficiently and stop draining the taxpayer's dollar. I'm not sure if that's capable of being happened in 4 years. I think that we're going to have people take the baton when Trump's time is done. But
So Yoxnev, I just pulled up this item to see. We're still running, so it might have been on your end. Yeah, I'm glad you refreshed. Okay. So Tiger, I need to wrap it up. I need to get
Yeah,
ready
me
to go,
too.
but I do want to say one thing, and I want to do it in relation to freaking awesome. And I think it's a great note to end on.
Okay,
What
this
happened
one,
during the Boston Tea Party?
they got tired of taxes and they being taxed for everything, including, especially in this case, the tea. So they threw it into the water.
But how was it handled?
How was it handled?
Did they burn the ships down?
I don't
Did
know if
they
they,
hurt the merchants?
no, they
No.
got
All
rid
they
of the
did
products.
was they went in and they found the item of interest that was the source of their disdain, and they went after it. There was no collateral damage. No, I mean there were repercussions, but there was no collateral damage. We need to be careful about the items that we talk about and the items we choose, and make sure that in our general statements we avoid collateral damage ourselves. Let's be purposeful about our words. Let's be purposeful about what we do. And yes, I agree. Boston Tea Party was a good thing, and it happened in a very specific reason. And it happened for a person, but it was taxation without representation. They targeted the item of interest, and that was all. So let's do us a favor. When we're having these discussions, let's make sure we avoid or minimize the potential collateral damage. Let's agree to disagree. Let's have good conversations. Let's make sure we have our information. Let's make sure we keep rhetoric to a minimum. And let's actually talk about the subjects. And let's find some potential solutions and maybe act on those. Because I think then, as a group, we can start to instigate change instead of sitting here just complaining about it.
Agreed. Agreed. And besides, we got most Americans want what's best. So, and we have a really great selection of Americans in this community, whether it's numismatist or stacker or something in the middle. So, I want to thank Frosty for being able to have a discussion with Neil, although it was completely two different opinions, which could, for a lot of other types of people, went downhill real fast. So I want to thank both Frosty and Neil for keeping it professional and making it, instead of a personal issue, a issue of topics, so that maybe somewhere in the middle we can find for every item some peace, harmony, and something that makes our lives and our country stronger and more effective. So, uh, you disappeared on me, Frosty. There you are. So, on that note, I'm going to agree with you. It's getting late. You need to get some sleep because I think you're going to do a morning stream.
We're going to be talking
You
about
there?
we're going to be talking about the situation with the U.S. Mint.
Did you guys freeze on me?
I'm here.
Wait. Okay, you're moving again. I don't know if you did that on purpose and you're playing the statue or if it was a glitch.
No, I was talking. You might have
Okay.
locked up. Yep. We'll be talking about the U.S. Mint. We'll be talking about this gold flowing hair metal issue that's going on. If you haven't heard about that, we'll definitely talk about it. We're also going to talk a little bit about something we were going to talk about here.
Are you talking? Are you talking about that gold medal that you're getting me for my birthday?
Yep. Yep, that's the one. It's straight from China.
My precious.
Don't get upset when it turns your neck white. Nickel, the answer is
Believe it or
no.
not, my birthday is around the corner, though.
The answer is no. I'll tell you why tomorrow morning. Or actually, in about
No, Nickel. No,
6
Nickel.
hours.
I'm not interested in well, Frosty's more up to date on the flowing hair coin metal more than I am. In fact, I wasn't even going to get a silver one, and then I changed my mind post facto simply because I want something in the teaching box to teach my grandchildren. So I just wanted a plain old regular silver to teach them in the future. But no, I'm not interested in that. I might be interested in buying a gold Trump in the future, but not that. So I guess we're getting close to saying good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. So
my guess, Nickel, is
so anyway,
$3,700.
who did that song?
Say again?
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous at this time in history for something to go that at that rate.
You asked a question. Who what?
I said, $3,700 for an ounce of
No.
gold
You said who
is a
sang that?
ridiculous price.
Good night, sweetheart.
Oh yeah, who sang that?
Spaniels.
Yeah. I thought it was the end of someone's TV show.
The Platters also did it.
Okay, let me see something here.
I think the Platters is the one. Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. Boom, 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 boom.
Okay, I'm seeing something about a TV show on BBC. I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting a little confused in the head.
Yeah, the Platters sang "Good Night, Sweetheart. It's time to go." But
Okay.
the original song, I think it was "Good Night, Sweetheart," was the Spangles, or that might have been another song, but I think it was the Spangles. Good night, sweetheart.
You might be. No, it's a sitcom follows Gary Sparrow. No, that can't be it.
The Platters. Okay. I thought it was the Spaniels. There's another song. It's a "Good Night, Sweetheart. Good night." But I thought that was the same one. It might be a different tune. So maybe it's just the Platters.
Yeah.
So, all right, all.
All right. Sounds good.
Salute.
Well, you could always say, "May tomorrow be a perfect day."
Huh?
Or we could always end it on, "May tomorrow be a perfect day."
Okay, but it's today.
Don't be so technical.
All right, folks.
Good night, everyone. But take one guess
see
who
you
that's
later.
from.
Huh?
Take one guess who that's from.
No clue.
And you don't know me that well. Hold on.
Oh, the Osmonds? Okay. I should have known better. I should have known better.
Well, good night, everyone. Get the sleep you need. Come see Frosty in the morning. And if I can get my silly self out of bed to get some things done, I'm going to caffeinate and listen in while I'm driving. Thank you all for
Happy
coming.
Marine Corps birthday.
Oh, how about that? Wonderful.
All right, bud.
That's
We'll see you later.
good night, everyone. And Nickel, you're horrible. You always have to end on a horrible note. Does your mother even love you? All right. Good night, everyone.